Ever felt the cold shock of betrayal, stark and unforgiving? I did. My life, once a balanced equation of love and trust, erupted when I discovered deceit where I least expected. How could you? I gasped, as the chemical bonds we built in youth broke under lies. From scientific breakthroughs to a heartfelt proposal, each moment was overshadowed by the looming specter of infidelity. This is my journey of love, deception, and redemption. Enjoy watching it. I nearly fell next to the car, feeling all numb. Blood was coming out of my wounds a lot, and my shoulder felt really bad, like some muscles were hurt. I had lots of cuts on my arms and bits of stuff stuck in my back. Later, I would learn that feeling numb at first is what happens when you get shot. It takes a bit for your body to get what's happening, and for nerves to know how bad the hurt is. The deeper the cut, the more time your body might need. My head was starting to spin. I felt shock kicking in and knew I had only a little time before I passed out. But I managed to crawl to her and look into her eyes. She was hurt bad, too. There were people coming close and shouting, but as I slipped away, her eyes were all I saw. After everything, they were what counted. Then it went dark, and I was thinking about the past. Families are weird. No two are the same. All the different people, ages, ways of seeing things, and who you come from make every family special. My family was no exception. My name is Harry Other, and I was the kid in the middle in what you'd call a typical family. Martha, my mom, Roger, my dad, and us 3 kids. My big brother Greg was big and strong like our dad. My little sister Joan. She was small, like my mom. I was different. I had sandy brown hair and was pretty thin. When Greg picked on me, Dad just laughed and told me to man up. Life's not always fair, he said. As we got older, we did all the family stuff. Picnics, trips to the park. Of course, I got Greg's old clothes, even the ones that were way too big. So my mom got me belts and braces to keep them on, but I always felt left out. Greg and Joan got new things, and I just had to deal with it. Dad was always tougher on me than the others. Greg was like him, and Joan was his little princess. Dad called me the mistake when I became a teen. My family didn't mind if I was left out or left at home. My mom might show some care. But then Dad would say life isn't fair, and I'd be alone again. The good thing about being alone so much was that I learned lots. I hit the books, I made stuff. I got into computers and tech at school and saved up from small jobs to buy my own computer. It was pieces from different places, but I built it and figured out how it worked. My escape from home trouble was my learning. I got into physics, geography, life science, chemistry, and history. I also picked up English, German, and Spanish. I soaked up knowledge in the quiet of my room. I got top marks and praises from teachers, but at home it seemed like my parents didn't see my hard work. Mom would smile a little and say, "Well done, Dad just made a sound." Greg teased me for being a bookworm. He barely got through his easiest math class. In the last years of high school, Greg hit me more, saying it was just brotherly love, and Dad seemed to be okay with it. Joan just laughed but left me alone. Once, Mom found me icing a bruise and helped me for a bit, saying I shouldn't let Greg get to me. But Mom, I don't. I try to stay away, but he still hits me whenever he can. Dad seems to like it, and how Greg treats me makes me feel like I don't belong. Mom looked like she wanted to say more, but then she didn't. Mom said she'd talk to Dad and Greg so they'd stop picking on me. Since I wasn't as big as them, maybe they didn't think it hurt. A bit after, Greg started hitting me in my sleep, a punch in the belly every few nights. Dad never spoke up, but he'd look at me like he was both mad and pleased. I was always covered in bruises, hidden by my too big clothes. I made sure no one at school saw them until one day during gym, someone's prank made me fall and cut my arm bad. They sent me to the nurse, Mrs. Erskine, who told me to take off my shirt to clean the cut. I didn't want her to see the bruises from Greg, but eventually I did it. The cut hurt a lot as she cleaned it, but then she wrapped it up tight. As I was putting my shirt back on, she saw the huge bruise on my back. "Harry, are you okay?" she asked. I tried to brush it off like my family taught me. "I'm fine, Mrs. G, just fell a few days back. Didn't know it was this bad." She didn't seem convinced, but let me go anyways. I later found out she told all the teachers to watch out for me, thinking someone was hitting me. All my teachers at school kept an eye on me, and in my last year they came together to help me out. They knew I wasn't being picked on at school. They thought I had trouble at home because I didn't hang out with friends outside school. They knew they couldn't just talk to me about it without causing drama. So they did the next best thing. As the end of the year came close, they helped me apply to a bunch of colleges and made sure I applied to ones a few hours away to get me away from my home. They helped me pick a major, and I chose chemistry. My science teachers helped me apply for a scholarship, taking a chance. My chemistry teacher, Mr. Daniels, who I always got along with, talked to my parents and set up a meeting about the scholarship. They came to school a week before the deadline, and 5 of us sat in a room. Mr. Daniels, the school principal, Mr. McDonald, my parents, and me. Mr. and Mrs. Other, I don't think you see the chance for Harry here. He's one of the sharpest kids we've had in years, and he might get a full ride to college. Mr. Daniels had been talking to my parents for almost 20 minutes. That's nice, but as I said, I am not paying for the kid to go to school. He needs a job and to know his place, my dad said with a frown. Mr. Other, Mr. McDonald jumped in. What Mr. Daniels is trying to say is that the scholarship Harry could get would cover everything so you wouldn't have to pay. Dad didn't have much to say to that, but quickly found another excuse. Well, all these colleges are far away, so he'll have nowhere to live. And again, I won't pay for that. We've thought of that, Mr. Other, Mr. Daniels said. My cuz has a business near the uni. He was on the hunt for a younger person to help clean up and keep his big storage spot neat. It's not a fancy job, he laughed. Sure, it might get really dirty and tough, but it would give enough money for Harry to have a place to stay near the uni and buy some basic things like food and books. I gave Mr. Daniels a weird look because earlier when he spoke about the job with his cuz, he said a different thing. He told me I'd help him research and work in a lab, close to the chemistry stuff I'd be studying at uni. He looked at me, winked, and quietly shook his head. I caught on and kept quiet. My dad thought for a bit. Okay, as long as it doesn't cost me anything, and it teaches him to work hard and gets the kid out of my house. Great, said Mr. McDonald, jumping in before Dad could back out. I've got the papers right here for signing. After an hour, all was signed, and we went home. I was surprised when 2 weeks later, Mr. Daniels pulled me from class and handed me a big bunch of envelopes. You're all set. The uni board said yes to your scholarship, and my cousin Norman can't wait to meet you during the holidays before uni starts to show you the ropes. Mr. Daniels, I'm lost for words. Just think of me when you're on top. He paused. Harry, you're going to do great in whatever you aim for. You're smart, hard-working, and always think of others first. All the teachers at school knew what was going on at home for a while. I wanted to speak up for my family, but he stopped me. It's okay. No need to say or defend anything. We just know and thought this was how we could help you from falling down. School ended at the year's close, as schools here in Australia do, following the calendar year. And I found out I was 3rd in school. I could have tied for 1st if my folks had let me do extra stuff outside school. But no luck. Once school was out, Mr. Daniels said he'd pick me up for a new job intro. He told me to call him Jack, not a teacher anymore. We went to the next city, an hour away, and he introduced me to Norman. They also helped me find a flat. It was a great 3-day trip, talking to Jack and Norman like pals. They listened and told me about my job. Norman had put in a good word, and I got to choose between 2 flats. I picked the one nearer to work in an old, nice building. The building guy was kind and said to call if I needed anything. Jack talked about what I'd learn, and I felt hopeful that life could be better than what my family made it seem. The night before I left, my mom came with boxes to help me pack. But Mom, I can't take all this on the bus. Don't worry, dear. I talked to your dad and I'll drive you and the boxes in his truck. 1 trip and you're moved. Mom almost cried, but then hugged me tight, the biggest hug I've ever got from her. When she hugged me, she started crying. Harry. My sweet, beautiful Harry, you deserve better. I couldn't do much, but here's a gift. Mom left the room and came back with a small box. Inside was a lovely notebook and a fancy pen. I'd use the notebook for ideas and findings in the years ahead, and the pen would always stay on my desk. Don't tell your dad, but I wanted you to have something just for you, she said, her voice shaky, to show how much I love you. Then she left, and I heard her blow her nose. At dinner, not much was said. Don't be a bigger loser than you are now, Dad said, looking at me with cold eyes and then back at his phone. I'll find someone else to take care of you. But don't you dare make us look bad. Mom just gave me a sad look. That night, Greg came into my room and hit me like always. He wanted me to remember my place. It was wrong. Leaving home felt good. The next year, I loved learning new things in chemistry at university. I worked with Norman, applying what I learned. I was free for the first time. Jack visited a lot. He felt like the brother I wished Greg was. I saved my money, and Jack helped me pick a car. We talked about girls and hung out, but having a car meant I had to visit home once a month. I had to show up at family lunches every Sunday since I moved out. My folks and brothers and sisters always had new faces around when I was gone. It felt like they were more at ease without me. I stuck out when I went back. Dad wanted me there, so I went, even though it felt odd. I'd chill on a sofa corner waiting to leave. A lot of my dad's workers were there too, which made me uncomfortable. Still, I went because it was expected. In that time away, I found something big. I figured out a way to make certain plastics stronger and last longer. But if you added a common harmless thing, the plastic would break down into nothing in days. When I told Norman at work, he couldn't believe it. "This is magic, Harry. This will change how we use plastics and help the planet." We tested my idea a lot over 1 week, and it always worked. At the week's end, we were with Jack in the office, filling him in. Jack said Norman and I needed to chat. But done right, my discovery could make me well-known fast. Jack and Norman helped me get a patent, so it was mine. I had just turned 18, so no need for my parents to sign off. Jack also got a deal with Norman for us to start a business to make this new plastic. Norman got a share for his help. In 6 months, Jack got a tiny bit of the business. I went from having little money as a college kid to making what big-shot advisors make in a year. Still, I had no friends to hang out with. It was just schoolwork and sometimes visiting my folks, but I did a few things for me. First, I took a loan to buy, not rent, a flat. And like always, Jack helped me pick it out and we bought it. It was a bit far to walk, so I needed a better car, not my old 1982 green Mazda that was almost dead. We went looking around car lots, and that's when I saw her and fell for her. A 2010 LS7 V8 Camaro, used but in good shape. Low miles, a better suspension. Being under 25, my insurance cost more, but it felt right. Turning her on, she sounded happy and always ready to go. On Saturdays, you'd find me in the parking lot, washing and waxing her for our next ride. I also decided to dress better. I bought clothes that suited my slim body from my fast metabolism. I began to see myself not just as my big brother's target for jokes. The next time I went to my parents for lunch, driving there was amazing, showing off my Camaro on the highway and turning heads as I arrived. A V8 isn't quiet, so some folks came out to see what was up, including my sister Joan. "Hey, this is for family only," she started, then stopped when she really saw me. "Hey sis, it's your geeky big brother back for lunch." She didn't know what to say, but then her friends came over, curious about the car and me. They couldn't believe I was Joan's big brother or that I owned such a cool car. Being the star for once felt good. I couldn't stop the smile inside. My mom nearly cried when she saw my new look and hugged me tight. Dad and Greg just gave me their usual cold stares. Dad seemed mad, and Greg angry. After that, my father, brother, and sister mostly stayed quiet around me, aside from a few mean jabs. But they listened to nearly everything I talked about. Mom was full of questions. "No, Mom, I'm still your Harry. Just had some luck finally." Mom couldn't leave me be after our hug, eager to know about my big change. A few months back, I found a recipe that could change everything, and Jack and Norman have been helping me with something called a patent, which means folks have to pay to use my recipe. Mom was shocked, but there's more. Norman and I started a new company to make the special stuff my patent covers. He gave me a 30% share in the company. He has another 30%, and we gave Jack 1%, with some big investors holding the rest, 39%. It looks like it's going to be a big hit. Dad wore a frown. Looked like he wanted to say something but stayed quiet. Greg, for once, had no words for me. "It's just a little money now, but in a few years I think I'll have a lot and we'll see new places for research." I left my family speechless and without their usual comments. It wasn't the praise like from Jack, but also not the usual put-downs. That week, I returned to work and studies full of joy, my smile unshakable. Each month, lunch with my parents felt different. Still, I wasn't completely part of the group. John, Greg, and Dad never showed any more interest in me than before, but Mom and some friends seemed keen on what I was up to. Then one Sunday I came and Mom looked on edge. I gave her a hug, nodded at my brothers, sisters, and Dad, then went to greet today's guests, as I had said before. Mom and Dad often had different folks over on Sundays, and today was no different. I mixed in a bit. I got some food and sat in my usual spot to eat my BBQ sausages, potato salad, and bread rolls, and to watch folks for a bit. I wasn't as shy as before, but I still didn't click with these people, especially the ones my parents liked. "Can I sit here?" It was like hearing an angel. I looked up, and there she was. If I liked my camera's look and shape, she made my car seem dull. She was tall and slim, a bit under 6 feet. She had long, soft brown hair to her waist. She had a slim waist, and looked like she had great hips in her jeans. Her face was cute, with big brown eyes, a small nose, and soft lips. She wore big glasses, but they suited her face. I think she had just asked me something. "Ah, sorry," she laughed. I guess she caught me staring. "Do you mind if I sit?" "I'd like to sit in it." "Sure, I'm Harry." "Diana." For the next hour, we talked about all kinds, from movies and music to my work on cars like my Camaro. Diana was studying to be an abuse counselor. She loved dogs, not cats, liked sci-fi movies, and was into video games. She lived about half an hour away. By the time I had to leave, I was really taken with her. We were still talking when Mom came out to find me. "Harry?" "Yes, Mom." She walked over to where Diana and I were sitting. When she saw Diana, she paused. "Diana, how are you?" They said hello to each other. It turns out Diana had worked for my dad not too long ago, and that's why she was here. "Harry, could you help me out?" my mom asked. "Diana's ride had to go early because of a family thing, and since you're going past her house on your way home, could you drop her off?" "Sure, Mom, if Diana's okay with it." She touched my arm. "I'd love to, Harry." My mom looked happy. She didn't have to ask someone else for a favor now. 20 minutes later, we were ready to go. I hugged my mom and waved to my dad for the first time. He smiled and waved back. That was new. Diana liked my Camaro, and we chatted all the way to her place. Then she showed me a small building that looked like the one I used to live in. It's not big. I share a 3-bedroom place with 2 other girls. We all pay a bit and make it work. I've been there. I used to live in a tiny place by myself. She looked like she wanted to say something as we sat in the car. "I had a good time today. Your family doesn't seem to think highly of you. But today I saw someone who cares enough about his family to show up no matter what." Diana. That was one of the kindest things anyone's ever told me. We went quiet for the first time in hours. We both knew Diana should go in, but she waited. "Diana?" "Yes." I wanted to ask her out, but didn't know how. This was all new to me. "Next Friday?" she said. "Next Friday?" "Yes, Harry. You wanted to ask me out for next Friday to see the new superhero film, didn't you?" She was gazing at my car's dash, a bit shy and blushing, offering me the chance I felt was building up all evening. "Yep." Last Friday, we swapped numbers, emails, and stuff, and I wanted to give her a goodnight kiss. But I went for a clumsy hug instead. Driving home, I was too excited to sleep, but at my lecture in the morning and work in the afternoon, I was on cloud 9. After a few hours, Norman pulled me aside. "Harry, am I right to guess you found someone?" I turned all red and spilled the beans. "Yes." "Norman, she's stunning. Met her at my folks'. Her name's Diana. She's in college and lives quite close. We plan to catch a movie this Friday night." Norman thought it was sweet. Puppy love. He teased me about it all week. He made sure I stayed on track. In the lab, we couldn't afford slip-ups as my work could really mess things up if done wrong. Diana and I chatted a couple of times during the week, and by Friday afternoon I was all nerves, so I called up Jack. He'd heard from Norman, so he knew what was up. For the first bit, I told him all about Diana and how I was scared to mess up my first date ever. He chuckled. "It's all right, Harry. Being a bit nervous shows you really like her, but you'll be watching a film, so it won't be too awkward. You'll spend most of the time lost in the movie. So wear your nice dark blue jeans, that white shirt, and the white sneakers we picked out. And yeah, brush your teeth, use Deo. Just be how you always are. You'll do great." "But I'm not all that," I said. "You don't see it. But girls do look your way a lot. Didn't you notice?" Just yesterday, a couple of lab tech girls were all eyes on you as you were walking around the lab. With my changing style, being a young guy, driving a cool car, and feeling sure in what I do, others start to see me. It seems like Diana saw this and wanted to be the first to get close before someone else did. This made me more worried. That night, as planned, I picked up Diana at 7. We went straight to the movies for the 7:30 show. We both loved the film. Marvel movies always get the story and effects right. This one was funny too, so we laughed a lot. In a funny part where the main guy got caught in an awkward moment by his love interest. Before he could disappear, Diana grabbed my hand. She laughed so much and then just held my hand. I didn't mind at all. But I think we need to watch the movie again. I was half watching the movie, half happy about Diana holding my hand. After the movie, still holding hands, we went to a cafe nearby. Diana pulled me over and we sat and ordered Italian hot chocolates. If you haven't tried one, you should. They're amazing. Imagine a thick, warm chocolate drink. We talked about the movie, what might come next in the series. Then we started talking about more personal stuff, what we hoped for in our jobs, my car. I took a brave step and told her how pretty she looked. She wore dark jeans, a light blue top, and dark shoes. Her hair was neat and pulled back, and she wore thin glasses, different from her usual thicker ones. But the best part was finding out we both loved watching people. It made the evening special. We enjoyed watching people and making up funny tales about them. One pair, we joked, were spies from Russia gathering secrets. Another old duo was running back to avoid getting less food from the strict boss at their home. A young pair, always kissing, were like love-struck heroes from a tale, torn by family but deeply in love. We were having so much fun, I didn't want the night to end. But it got late, so we drove home. I got out, opened her door, and she stepped out and hugged me. Then, out of the blue, she kissed me on the lips quickly. Diana laughed and stepped back. "Harry, next Friday?" "Yes. You're taking me out next Friday?" "Yep. I wouldn't miss it for anything." She smiled, knowing the joke. We ended up hanging out a lot, many weekends and some evenings, too. We talked a lot, held hands, and kissed often. I met her roommate, Cindy, who was tall with blonde hair. She dressed nicely. Then there was Dawn, who was shy with brown hair. I showed Diana where I worked and introduced her to my coworkers. Some of them looked at her a bit too much. Maybe my friend was right. Diana was showing she was with me. We went places together often. She had an old little car, so we usually drove in my nicer one. I got us matching sunglasses with hers made just for her eyes. Diana felt bad because the price was nearly $300. But I guess I was really into her and wanted to treat her well. "Diana, let me get these for you. Not many people know, but I have quite a bit of cash from my patent money and the company I have with Norman. Buying you sunglasses for our rides won't hurt my wallet. And we did look cool in them. Aviators and getting out of the Camaro, if I do say so. We were close for about 2 months, having a great time together when things between us changed again. It was a Sunday, not the usual Saturday lunch at my folks'. We sat in our spot, a bit away from everyone, enjoying our hobby of watching people. We were eating when Greg came by, waving a newspaper in our faces, trying to catch attention because he thought he had something to make me look bad. "Hey, mistake. What's this?" He showed me the paper. "It must be wrong because here you are, a mistake." He laughed at his own weak joke, but what he thought would make me look foolish made Diana's day. She took the paper, looked confused at first, then smiled wide. She looked at me and winked. "This could be good, Greg. This article you're trying to use to make fun of your brother," she hit the paper with her hand, "is actually a preview to a bigger story that a big business magazine is doing on a young inventor making waves all over. So is the mistake here because he messed up? So the paper used his photo to show he goofed?" He kept laughing at his joke, but no one else was. They probably knew this was not turning out how Greg hoped. I just sat there, smile getting bigger by the second. She stopped, making everyone wait. Harry, the main talk of the news and the whole story in the paper, caught everyone's eye when they met him at his desk to talk. Though they kept calling him the top young boss in the world a bit too much, which was kind of funny to hear. She felt so proud. And what's awesome is that Harry, my boyfriend, she almost shouted, is being praised not just for his big science finds, but for being smart, turning more than $10 million in less than a year. All eyes were on us. You could see everyone's mouths open wide. Greg looked confused. My mom's face was a mix of shock and pride. My dad just looked on. The friends of our family kept looking back at me, trying to rethink all they knew about me. Diana had a huge smile, looking very pleased with herself. Me? I was stunned. My smile from watching Greg get red was quickly gone, swapped for a face full of surprise. I had just been named someone's boyfriend. It took a bit for everyone to take in the news. Then, there in the middle, Diana looked at me and smiled, pushing up her glasses, looking the smartest in the room. At that moment, she was. Then all eyes were on me as everyone wanted to know more about the article. Finally, someone picked up the paper and read it out loud, and the questions started. I shared how my work on making and reusing plastic in the business that Norman and I had started, creating the stuff using a special mix based on the patent, was catching the world's eye. Big companies were eager to try our product to see if it really did what we said. I knew that if it worked, then we'd have to grow our work in many countries fast. The questions didn't stop that afternoon. Everyone wanted to know how much I'd make and if I was going to be famous. The chance to join my business lit up my family's eyes when I talked about money and chances. Yet when I said that the cash comes later and jobs are for those who know the work, their faces fell. My dad, who was first excited, now frowned at me. He seemed to think that just because he was my dad, he deserved a part of what I made. Then there was Jones, who suddenly began to notice me. It seemed like she thought she could get money from me just because she's my sister. Honestly, though, I wasn't about to just hand over what I earned. They never treated me well growing up. They weren't poor. Dad had his building work. So I thought, they can keep their money and I'll keep mine. There were a couple other things that happened that day. After everyone calmed down, Diana came over, sat on my lap, and kissed me like never before. This wasn't a small peck. It was a big, deep kiss. I felt excited as she kissed me and then looked at me with a bold stare. I was 19 and Diana was just a bit younger, and I had never been close to a girl before. Now we were a couple. "Yes, silly," she said, smiling at me. "You're my boyfriend and I'm your girlfriend." I smiled back and we kissed again. It was just my second big kiss, and wow, I think I love kissing. When Diana and I were in the same room, we always made sure to touch. It was strange at that moment. After we all helped clean up, something big happened just before Diana and I were about to leave. As usual, the guys took care of the dishes and trash, and I wiped the tables. Diana went inside to help with the dishes. When I went in, I saw my parents and Greg talking to her. She looked a bit red and caught my eye, but didn't say anything. I took her aside to ask what was up. She hesitated, then told me there was trouble. My folks didn't like how she talked about my win and made Greg look bad. They don't see me the way she does. To them, I'm a letdown. They'd only be okay with me succeeding if it was on their terms. Oh, and Dad thinks he should handle my cash. I was upset. Greg had it coming, always trying to make me feel small because I was a surprise baby, not planned like him and Joan. He hates it when I get any attention. But Diana made things better by standing by me and calling herself my girl. She went a little red and I kissed her hand. As for my dad wanting credit for my success and to manage my money, that's just how it is. Jack and Norman were the only ones who ever cared about my work or me before you showed up. Now I have someone special to care for too. I want to be the best boyfriend for you, Harry. Diana came into my life so suddenly. She pushed me down on the sofa and even my mom saw it from the kitchen but didn't say a word. Diana sat on me, hugged me tight, and rested her head on my chest. She might have cried a bit, I'm not sure. The next few months felt like a dream. We hung out a lot at my place and got really close. I even got to touch her more, and she seemed okay with it. We might be close to doing more intimate stuff soon, but we were taking it slow. On the work front, things were getting busy. More and more people wanted the plastic stuff we were making. I had to travel a lot because the companies buying from us wanted to meet me, the guy who made it all. I went places in our country and even to other countries. Norman often came with me, and we had PR people join us too. Big manufacturing companies wanted to see us badly, and they treated us really well. Nice meals and fancy hotels all on them. I showed them how our stuff worked in making things and gave great talks with slides. All these meetings went well, and Norman was thrilled because everyone kept ordering more. But every time I traveled, I missed Diana a lot. We tried to talk on Skype every few days, and I could tell she missed me just as much. I took a lot of pictures of the places I went, and she really liked seeing the hotel rooms I stayed in. She hadn't traveled much, so having a boyfriend who did travel was both cool and a bit sad for her. I hoped we could go places together soon. My trips meant we missed family get-togethers for the next 3 months. She said she only wanted to go if I went too. I felt there was more to it. We were both invited always. But if I couldn't go, Diana always found a reason she couldn't either. One of the best parts of our trips was that our team helped us set up shops in 3 new countries. This made our business grow a lot. When we came back from getting our 3rd site, Norman and I, along with our top team, worked non-stop for 2 weeks. Long days with no breaks, even on weekends. It was hectic, but we all knew it was worth it for our future. We decided our main office would be the main lab and research place. Our offices in other countries would make our products and sell them locally. This way, we could handle things better and not have to send everything from one place. During this busy time, Diana often brought lunch for me and would stay with me in my office or the lunchroom. We barely saw each other then. Even after setting up the management, I was still working a lot, sometimes 20 hours a day. After 3 weeks back, making it 5 weeks in total, Diana and I still hadn't gone on a date. Finally, she got fed up and talked to Norman to give me Friday night and Saturday off. She didn't say a word to me, letting Norman break the news. A laugh slipped from him as I began to argue. "Harry, that girl is crazy for you. She's been trying to meet you every day since we got back. And you gotta see your girl. She gets you swamped, and this work is key. But Harry, she needs to feel she's just as key to you. Drop work tonight, and tomorrow, and hang with her friends. You're the hardest worker here. Take the next couple of days. We've got things covered. Work can wait." He shot me a knowing look, half smiling. "Don't forget to hand her the gifts you picked up. Show her she's your world." So that night, I actually went all out. I told Diana I'd be back early and to meet at my place. When she arrived, she hugged me tight, kissed me like she was holding on to life. "I've missed you tons, Harry. Lunch at your spot isn't the same as being in your arms." Her eyes lit up. "So, where to tonight?" "Sydney." "Sydney? The city?" I couldn't hide my smile. "Yep, Sydney, Australia." I should have given her a heads up. But hey, we're from Melbourne, not far. A Sydney trip? We'd never done it. Her eyes sparkled, near to shouting with joy. "A getaway, just us." "Dee, I've missed you like crazy. Those quick meals, the flying. It's time we spent real time together." I must have hit the right note because the next thing I was swamped in kisses. "When do we leave?" "Now." "But Harry, I've got no clothes." I pulled out a suitcase from behind the couch. "Got this on a trip and had your roommate Cindy throw in some outfits." She looked odd, her eyes full of love. I kept going. "I got it for you. So in the future, you can come with me sometimes. I missed you so much that Norman had to help me not come home early. Twice on that last trip." I looked at her and took a deep breath. "I have to say, I love you," looking down. I didn't move, just looking down. She was quiet, and I didn't know if I had just made a mistake and might have to go to Sydney by myself. I slowly looked up at Diana and saw a big smile I knew well. She touched my face gently. A tear was in her eye. "Harry, I love you too." The kiss was slow, holding each other. Our lips met softly, sharing a moment, and I felt tears on my cheek. I was happy like the first time we kissed many months ago, and I knew she loved me just as much. We have to leave. I planned everything for the next few days, just us, no one else. We took an Uber to the airport, caught a flight to Sydney that took an hour. We sat in business class. The flight attendant gave us champagne and we drank it together. We both don't really like champagne, but we liked doing that together on a plane. It was Diana's first time flying and she was curious about everything. The takeoff and landing. Looking out the window, even using the loo were all new to her. A corporate car picked us up when we landed. The driver, who was just for us, handled our bags and drove us to town. He left us at Darling Harbor, where we ate upstairs in a nice place with a great view. Diana kept smiling. We tried some dishes, had a few drinks, and had fun. After eating, we walked by the harbor, hand in hand, along the boardwalk. She stopped walking as we saw one of the big boats come in, people getting off. I could tell this talk was going to be deep. "Yes, my dear." She let out a deep breath. I love hearing that from you, but I'm not sure I should. We found a bench by the water and sat. This was going to be a big talk. Harry, I don't talk much about my past. She told me it was because she didn't have a happy start. Both her mom and dad were gone, and she was all alone until she was almost an adult. She lived with the state, and it wasn't good. I never asked much because she'd quickly change the subject. She went on, "There's a lot of bad in my past. I was made to do things I didn't want to, things I'm not proud of." Tears were starting in her eyes. Harry, you're my first real love, the first guy I've really cared for. With you, I feel loved, wanted, and maybe the bad stuff from before doesn't have to be my whole life, but Harry, I don't think I deserve your love. Now she was really crying. I don't deserve it. You're the kindest, most honest man I know. You give me everything. This trip, I never dreamed of anything like this. I was happy just being with you back home. But you always make time for me, even with your big career ahead. But I'm hurt, not whole, and I don't deserve you. She looked like she wanted to say more. So I gave her a little hope. Diana, it's okay. I know you don't like talking about your past. I get there's dark stuff, that's why I never pushed. But what you've been through made you, the woman I love. We've been close for over a year, together nearly as long. I can say nothing that would make you love me any less. Need to hide a body? I'll grab a shovel. Got big money problems? I'll help pay them. I love you, Diana Brown, totally and fully. She cried more. I tried to hug her to show her it was okay, but she stepped back, mad in her eyes. No, Harry, my wonderful great Harry, I don't earn your love, I'm not clean. She cried harder. At last I started to get what she meant. It's okay. No, it's not, Harry. I'm broken, dirty. I can't give you the one thing I really want to. She almost fell, crying so soft. I hardly heard her. I'm not a virgin. Now I got it. This was her worry. She didn't want to talk about her past and knew I had no one before her, so I was still a virgin. But she wasn't. I sat next to her and put my arm around her as she cried, thinking over her words as she cried big tears of someone who thinks they've lost something big. People passed us sitting there, a man with a woman. Some asked if we were okay. Most just went by, looking but not wanting to join in. After a bit, I helped her back to sitting. Diana, from the first time I saw you, I liked you a lot. You know, I never had friends. My family made sure of that and always treated me bad when they could and not get in trouble. My sister ignored me. My older brother hit me till I had dark and yellow marks all over. Then, when they would go away, he would do it again. My dad looked down on me and my mom never stood up for me. She looked at me, worried for me, when the family went out. If they could leave me, they did. They never wanted to spend on me. All I got were old things from my brother Greg. They made me work hard at home and gave me less money than my brother and sister. If I messed up, my dad would hit me hard. Now, Diana looked at me, a mix of fear and anger in her eyes. Her face showed worry as I spoke. I had never shared this with anyone before. I just couldn't trust enough to tell the truth. Whenever anyone got close to knowing, I would defend my family. I don't know why, but I did. You might think you'd leave me after hearing my story. But you say you love me even more now. You're okay with me sharing hard stuff and trying to open up. You said it's fine that I'm not a virgin. You figured that's normal for our age, and you had no worries about it either way. You love me, Diana. What I told you changes nothing for us. We're here together this weekend because you love me. You said you're not leaving, and you hope I'll stay with you, maybe even for a long time. What you said, not caring about my past or if I was a virgin, made Diana cry again. She hugged me tight and kept saying, "It's not fair. I don't deserve you." And "I love you," for a long time. We were in our own world. Nothing else mattered as we hugged. When we stood up, she stuck close to me. She got some tissues, dried her tears, and we went so she could fix her makeup. I thought she was beautiful, but she wanted to not look as if she had been crying. After she felt better and came out of the restroom, we kept walking by the sea and found a small ice cream shop. We both liked sharing a cup of cookie ice cream. It was almost 11 at night, so I felt it was time to go back. I used my phone to call our ride. I had booked a big room with 3 beds at a fancy hotel close to the famous Sydney Opera House. It had a great view of the water, the harbor bridge, and the opera house. When we got into our room, we were amazed by the view. We looked around all the rooms, sat on the sofa in the main room, and kissed for a bit. Kissing her is so special to me, and I never want to forget that feeling. I let all my love show through our kiss. I knew we had to talk about where to sleep soon. But Diana asked first, "Harry, is it okay if we share a bed tonight? Tonight was wonderful and tough. But tonight I just want you to hold me as I sleep. I want to feel safe with the man I love." I paused for just a second. My only worry was about keeping my hands to myself. But I was happy with her choice. We went to the big bedroom. Our bags were already there. Our driver thought we would sleep together. I smiled, happy to be near the one I love more than anything. If I was lucky, I might get to touch her more. Diana grabbed some stuff from her bag, gave me a kiss, and went into the bathroom. I put on some soft shorts and got into bed. And what a bed it was. I've stayed in many hotels, but one thing always bugs me. They say there's a king bed, but it's really two small beds pushed together with a cover on top to make it seem like one big bed. And they bug me because of the gap in the middle. This bed was a real king size with soft cotton sheets that felt like someone hand-washed them, not tossed in a big wash. The pillows ranged from big soft ones you could sink into to hard ones that stayed the same shape. I was trying out different pillows when the door opened and all thoughts of pillows flew out of my head. The woman I'd been dreaming about stood there, lit up by the soft light from the side lamps and the bathroom. She had a big smile on her face, and her long, slim legs were bare up to her sheer black undies with flower designs covering just enough. Her upper body was bare, showing off her tight belly, and going up. She had on a tiny, see-through nightie, but it barely covered her chest. I was staring at her body, from her eyes to her chest and then to her undies where I could almost see through. She laughed and jumped into bed with me, our arms wrapping around each other as we kissed deeply again. But this time, our hands explored more. "Do you trust me, babe?" she asked, looking right into my eyes. She smiled, took off her glasses, put them on the nightstand, and slid down the bed. Soon, we made love for the first time. It was incredible. We hugged for a bit. Then, Diana said we should shower together. That was another moment I loved. I washed her body, running my hands over her. We had our first time in the shower, too. Later, after another shower cleanup, we dried off and went back to the bedroom. Diana made a face. "We might need to call for new sheets. There's almost a puddle in the middle of the bed." I chuckled, thinking of our fun times. "Let's not worry until tomorrow, dear." There were 2 more rooms. We had to let the big bed's sheets dry, so we walked with no clothes into a room nearby. We jumped into bed and cuddled. "Love you," I mumbled, feeling sleep come. "Love you," Diana said, holding me close. Next morning, I woke to a warm body next to me, an arm on me. She was still in a deep sleep, making soft snores. I moved, and she started to wake up. So I turned to look at her as she opened her eyes. "Morning, dear," I said. "Morning, you with the morning breath," she teased because we didn't wash up last night. Our teeth brushing was missed, so no kisses, but we still had a bit of fun. Yet, we were both hungry and did brush our teeth before getting ready and going out to eat. Watching Diana get ready was like seeing art. "I'll tease you all day," she warned. We went out, told the front desk about our room, and went to find a cafe for breakfast and to watch people. We picked a small cafe with good coffee and food. We sat close, watching life around us. Diana kept her hand close to mine, making it nice. "Honey, you made my night amazing," she said. I laughed. "You did too." "No, Harry, I mean it. I've been with others before, but last night," she blushed, "wasn't nice before." Then she paused. "But last night was different. You made it special. Like I was the only woman in the world, and I felt things, did things I never thought I would. It made me happy." She turned even redder. I was curious, so I asked. She took a sip and glanced at her coffee, then back at me. "I've never been with someone like that," I shared. "You made it feel so new for me." "And we'll go there again," she tried to say, finding the words tough. But I liked the awkward dance of it. She kept on, "Harry, I've also never felt such a rush. Not alone, not ever. You," she paused, "you were something else. You brought out parts of me I didn't know were there. It was like the first time all over." Then, leaning in, she kissed me softly. We ended our slow breakfast and roamed the city for the morning. I called our ride, and 20 minutes later we were seeing Sydney. He showed us the opera house. We took photos, laughed, and enjoyed being there. Next was the harbor bridge. Just in time, we got to climb over it, above the cars. What a day with Diana. Back at our hotel, we explored each other more, finding out what joy we could give. In the shower, we cleaned each other from head to foot. As we were getting ready, I stopped her with a wait. Naked, she watched as I got a suit bag. Inside was a small black dress and accessories I picked in Paris. I spent an hour with a salesperson who barely spoke English, trying to guess her size. She was stunned, then happy. She slipped on black underwear and I helped her with the dress. Keeping it simple yet heartfelt, our story unfolded with her at the heart of every moment. She glowed and spun around, happy at how she looked, then went to fix her hair and face. "Harry, this must have cost a lot. You didn't have to. I felt so bad. I've got the cash, so I like to treat the ones I love, the ones who are thankful, not those who keep asking. Asking, like your family." It was the first sad moment of the day, and I frowned as I got my suit ready, a new one to match her dress. "Yeah, didn't think you knew about them. They've been really pushy, asking for money. Joan keeps texting and Dad keeps leaving messages. I don't like talking to him, but he says they're why I'm doing well. So, he thinks I owe them." Diana tried not to look upset as she was doing her eye makeup. "Your dad and sister have been calling me too while you were away. Left messages for me, trying to get me to talk you into giving them money. It hasn't been scary, but I haven't called back. I'm not looking forward to seeing them again. That's why I don't want to visit without you. Your mom is sweet, your sister seems okay, but your dad and brother, it's all right, love. I know. You heard some of my tough times growing up last night. I understand." She stopped, came over, looked right at me and gave me a soft kiss. "You're one of the bravest people I know, Harry. And I know talking about the past is hard. Maybe one day we can share more." We got ready and a car took us to a fancy French place to eat, and then I had surprise tickets for a show at the Opera House. She didn't know yet. At dinner, Diana chose a fancy fish meal lightly cooked with fresh greens. After dinner, thinking about dessert, a waiter dropped a fancy box that looked old and rich, like from old France days. I jumped up to see if he was okay and helped him pick stuff up. He seemed a bit shy, but was okay. Most eyes in the place were on us, watching. Diana, too, got up to help. The waiter went off, then looked back to see what would happen. Me, still down on one knee, turned around, holding the box open with a shiny ring inside. All in the place went silent and Diana gasped. "Diana Brown, since the day we met, you've had my heart. You make me want to be a better guy. Your smile is my light, and your hands in mine make me feel unstoppable. This year has shown me my heart is yours. Will you marry me?" Everyone stopped breathing, waiting. Then she remembered to breathe. "Yes!" she yelled, and jumped into a hug as I stood up. I took the ring and she held out her hand. I put the ring on her finger. Claps and cheers broke out. She was beaming, looking at the ring and at me as the restaurant boss and the waiter who dropped the box came over. He said congrats and gave us our meal for free as a gift. Another duo came to say well done to us. For the next while, lots of folks came by. I've never seen Diana so full of joy. But the last two who came by made her gasp. Her roommate, Cindy, came by holding hands with Jack. I knew, but Diana didn't, that they had been seeing each other for a month. Jack had told me, and it made me happy. They weren't much different in age and looked good together. Cindy hugged Diana tight while Jack hugged me like he was my big brother. We all sat back down and they came to join us for dessert with cheese and a drink made from grapes. I told Diana how I set it all up, making Jack and Cindy come by plane this afternoon to wait for when I asked her to marry me. Then I surprised them all by saying we had 4 tickets for a music show at the big music place tonight, with a fancy car waiting outside for all of us. It was a fancy night out. My future wife was with me, all dressed up, my best friend was there, and so was his new girl. The music was great, and being all dressed up made us feel special. In past years, when Diana and I went places, we always went to hear the music like this. It was around 1 at night when the fancy car took us back to our hotel, and we said bye to Jack and Cindy. They went to their room and we to ours 2 hours later. I wondered if Jack would be lucky with Cindy tonight. Well, Mr. was in for a good time too. Diana took off her clothes, leaving only her glasses and her ring on. She got onto the bed. "I need your love, Harry." I think the sun was coming up when we stopped and went to sleep in another room because the main one was too messy. We slept till almost noon when a text from Jack woke us. "Hey buddy, it's time for lunch. Are you guys ready to meet before we head back?" I texted we'd be there in 30 minutes. We kissed, got ready, and packed up. I called the front desk for someone to get our bags, and then we went down to meet Jack and Cindy. Cindy looked worried for a sec. Diana leaned on me to sit down at the hotel cafe. We were up till 5 in the morning. I was a bit sore from Harry's rough handling. Cindy laughed hard after a pause. Jack and I did a fist bump. We got some food, and the girls went to the bathroom. Jack checked in on me about last night. He kept saying Harry was a lot. We then talked about science and my soon grad from college. Cindy gave me a look that was a mix of envy and respect when she came back. She whispered something to Jack. His eyes popped. "Holy shit, dude," was all he said. I didn't catch what was said, but I felt top of the world. We were buzzing to get hitched. In a week after getting back, we picked a date just over 6 months away for the wedding. Diana pretty much moved in when we got back. She stayed most nights, only leaving to help her old roomie move stuff. We talked about her studies, and she decided to study from my place to be close. She sat up at my coffee table with her laptop and books. She slowed down her classes but still got good marks. She even got to travel with me for work. Our clients and investors liked seeing Diana with me and the love we had. I loved taking her to new places. We made love in every city we went to. The family was mixed about us. But at the next family meet after I asked her to marry me in Sydney, we told them we were tying the knot. Diana was really proud of her neat but fancy diamond ring. Everyone had different things to say. Mom was all smiles and super happy. Dad even said congrats, though it seemed hard for him. Joan, more than anyone else, was all for us getting married. She joked loud and clear, saying she hoped Diana could turn me into a good man. Diana laughed off Joan's words, saying I had made her sore the day after I asked her to marry me because I'm pretty strong. Joan ended up spitting out her drink, and I turned bright red. Nobody likes talking about how strong someone can be in bed. Dad and my brother also looked embarrassed, or maybe mad. But for the rest of the day, Diana got a lot of looks. I just sat there, happy to be out of the spotlight because of my fiancé. It was nice not to be the center of attention for once. On top of all that, I also finished university with a chemistry degree. I thought about more school, but with the business and Diana, it seemed too much. I could always go back. Our company was doing great. We had over 800 workers and offices in 8 different places around the world. Back home, we made this key ingredient and sent it off to other places to make special plastics. We were known for this formula. I made it tough for other companies to make the same thing without paying us. So, I knew Diana and I were set for life. The only problem that came up before the wedding was about my money. My lawyers were on it, making sure my money was safe if we ever split or if something bad happened. They wanted Diana to sign a detailed agreement before we got married. She was okay with it. Strangely, my family didn't talk much about it when we all got together. We were all hanging out, talking about our soon-to-be weddings. I was on one sofa with Diana, my mom and dad on another. Joan was with her new guy, Fred. Maybe that's his name, or maybe I just made it up. She seems to have a new one at every family meetup these days. Greg was in his own chair, all by himself. I guess not many girls can deal with him. He always thinks he's right and can't do any wrong, which is often not true. I think it's because Dad always gave him whatever he wanted and never told him off. Everyone but Diana and me didn't like the idea of a prenup. It's just not fair. You're marrying Diana, and everything should be shared. A prenup is how rich folks keep everything to themselves and don't share with the rest, my dad said. But then I said, "But Dad, I'm one of those rich people. It's not that I want to keep things from Diana." She held my hand tight. "You have to see, the prenup isn't just for me, but for all my workers too. It makes sure if anything happens to me, everyone, Diana too, is taken care of." Dad seemed mad. "And the prenup makes sure Diana will always be okay anyway, so I wouldn't ever keep things from her." Diana held my hand again, tighter. Diana started calling my parents Mom and Dad since we got engaged. I think it makes Dad feel weird, which is why she does it. "I'm all in with Harry," she said. I'll sign the prenup because I trust him to always take care of me. I've got nothing to lose by it, and it's the smart move." She looked right at Dad, and for a bit they seemed to talk without words. "If it were me, I'd just give her everything and be done." Greg, thinking he's so wise, said, "No prenup for me. I just hand over everything." Joan looked at Greg and said, "God, you're so dumb." "No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Every time you say Harry is wrong, I start to think if it's really Harry or if it's you." Mom jumped in before things went too bad. "You both," she said. "This is for Harry and Diana to sort. They'll do what's right for them." Dad stood up, waved his hands in the air, and left. "You all don't see it. Life's hard," he said. As the wedding day got closer, we sent out invites and folks said they'd come. We saw our world split into groups. Family and pals were one. I picked Jack as my best man, and Diana chose Cindy as her maid of honor. We invited lots of folks from work. This meant bosses from far-off places. Some folk from the government and big names in business wanted to show up. They thought it mattered to be seen at the wedding of someone young and on the up like me. A couple of news people asked to come too. Our PR team said okay, but only if they let us check the photos and stories first. We also bought a big piece of land and started to build our dream house. The house was huge. 7 bedrooms, 2 floors, sitting on 100 acres. It was a bit far, about 40 minutes from town, and an hour from our lab. It wouldn't be ready until after our honeymoon, but it was going to be great. The master bedroom was almost half of the upper floor with big closets and the best part, a shower big enough for 2 with lots of water heads. We planned for a large kitchen, family room, a place for movies, a study, and room for several cars. We wanted to stay forever, so we made it big. Even though things were going well, we took out a small loan. But we thought we'd pay it off fast if all stayed good. I also got a new car but kept my old Camaro. It was a classic. The new one was a 2020 GR Camaro, orange with black stripes. It was strong with over 500 horsepower and a manual gear stick, and you could hear it way before you saw it. We got a brand new GL series for Diana with a roof you can take off and lots of extra stuff like warm seats and a wheel that warms up, a full map set, and a big trunk. With a new house, new cars, and our big day coming up, we were ready to start a great life together. Sure, not everything was smooth. We had our share of fights, but we made sure to talk it out and never went to bed mad at each other. For the honeymoon, I took off 6 weeks. We planned a fancy cruise from Sydney to Honolulu in one of the best rooms on one of the best ships down south. The best part was Diana had to leave her gadgets behind and disconnect while on the ship. After that, it would just be us. Time flew by super fast, and suddenly, it was my wedding day. The day was bright and warm as I stood there waiting for my bride. I had those nerves that I guess every guy feels right before they get married. Jack saw it. "Don't worry, man. You can still run." He laughed, and Greg, who was right next to him as one of my other pals, joined in. "For real, man, mistake, run now, and Dad and I will handle her and all your cash for you." Jack nudged him. Just then, the music played and there was Diana. After a bit, she got herself ready and walked down the aisle with Norman as she didn't have any family. He was happy to do it, seeing as he had a daughter about to be a teen. He was not looking forward to the day he'd do this for real and thought this was good practice. They made it down without any problems. As the service went on, we said our vows. When the person doing the wedding asked if anyone had a reason why we shouldn't marry, we heard a noise, just as we saw Mom grab Dad's hand tight. But that was all, and we were hitched. The party after was awesome. Diana made my taste buds sing by not going for a usual wedding feast. She got top grill masters from around to face off. They set up in a field we booked just for the big day, 2 days early. They brought their big smokers to cook up ribs, pulled pork, sausage, us, and wings. Plus, we had cornbread, slaw, and chili fries on the side. It was a hit. Nearly everyone left happy. Even my dad had to nod at how tasty it was. As the night went on, we cut the cake, had our first dance, and spent time chatting with guests, both together and on our own. At one point, Norman and I talked to a news guy about how being married might spark new ideas. I can't recall what I exactly said, but it was all smiles around, so it must have been good. But soon after, I saw my folks head to Diana while I was still talking. The reporter thought I was missing Diana as I kept looking over. That was the only time she looked upset all day. My dad seemed to be laying into her about something, my mom trying to calm things. I walked over as my dad was mid-rant at Diana. "Just don't you forget what you owe us, or I'll remind the boy." I stepped in. "What do you think my wife owes you, Dad? And why would I need a reminder?" They all noticed us then. Mom and Diana went red. Dad looked ready to burst, but Mom cut in before he could. "Your dad, well, he's had a bit too much tonight, was just saying how we brought you two together." Quick thinking, Mom. I wanted to dig deeper, but Diana gave me a look, asking to drop it. I let it go, no fuss. So we had to scoot, Mom and Dad, to wrap up some stuff before we said bye. Diana took my hand and we went over to where Jack, Cindy, and Norman's wife, June, had joined him. We did the whole toss the bouquet bit. Cindy caught it. I gave Jack a pat on the back. He grinned, leaned in, and told me he'd already picked out a ring. After our farewells, we hopped into the limo the job had got for us. We popped up through the sunroof, waving bye as we pulled away. Getting Diana out of her dress at the hotel took about an hour, but man, it was worth it. So now, as a married pair, that night was all about us, taking it slow, no rush. We were beat after such a long day, but fell asleep happy. Next day, we flew to Sydney and got a fancy ride to our cruise. Being big spenders got us VIP treats. We got on board early, avoiding the rush. I got us drinks, and we chilled on our balcony. Even had our own butler. Fancy, right? Seemed like a good time to bring up the end of the party. "Dee, you good?" Something seemed off when talking to my folks. I jumped in without all the facts. Diana looked uneasy, took a drink, and let out a sigh. "You're right, Harry. Something was up. But it's not my story to tell. It's on them. But what you walked in on was your dad pushing for you to hand over part of your business now that we're hitched. I didn't want to keep secrets, love. They hinted if I could sway you, they'd back down. Some secrets they keep, they think will break us. But you, most of all." She lifted her hand. "I don't know all, but what I do know would hurt you. But as I said, it's not for me to tell. It's up to them, and if I told you without them, it would hurt us more." She looked a bit sad. "I'm sorry, my love. This isn't how I wanted to start our honeymoon. Please know I love you so much that I am fighting for you, even against the bad thoughts your dad has. I never want to see you in pain, so I will wait and hope they can tell you one day. We had just married, and already we were facing big trust issues. But as we sat and drank, I felt in my heart that Diana loves me with all she has." We sat quiet for maybe 5 minutes while I tried to think. On one side, my wife didn't want to tell me something because she was scared for me and thought telling me a half-truth that wasn't hers to tell would harm me. On the other, she was my wife, and we had to trust each other in all things. I choose to walk the harder path of trusting my wife, even if it pained me. I must say this upsets me. There is a secret here that's about me, my family, and you're in it too. She nodded and I let out a breath. "However, I will trust you. I think you want the best for me, for us. I'm a bit scared, but as long as you stay with me and help, I will follow your lead in this." She rose from her chair, came over and sat on my lap, kissing me. "My husband, my love. I am sorry to do this, but I want the best for you. Telling you now will only cause more pain and not help. So I need a bit of time to sort this out for you." She kissed me again. "But this is not the right time for such talk. This is our honeymoon, and I think you owe your new wife some love." So I did. Just over an hour later, we both felt a bit better, pushing my family troubles out of my mind for a while. Diana and I, hand in hand, walked around the ship. At first, Phil, our butler, came with us, but soon we said he could go, and we explored by ourselves. Those first few days felt like magic. We spent time soaking up the sun, relaxing in the spa. We watched shows, played shuffleboard and ping pong. The ship stopped at islands, and we followed guides to see tropical spots. Dad bought Diana a shiny dark blue swimsuit. It fit her tight and showed a bit more skin than usual, but she still looked good. I felt a bit jealous but also proud when I saw others look her way as she passed by. The best times were the theme parties at night. Everyone dressed up for the theme, all white, school days, Gatsby. Such fun. We even got to eat with the captain as VIPs and saw how the ship worked from behind. And we made love. every day more than once. It really was on one of the days we came back from the beach, Diana took off her swimsuit, and that time was special for us. Lots of love, really, for the rest of the trip. We were just two in love on our honeymoon, mostly staying close to each other. I don't think I've ever been with someone so much as I was with her on that ship. When we got off in Honolulu after nearly a month, we were both wiped out but felt calm, like a real newlywed couple. I had booked us a big room in a nice hotel to finish our trip, a top-floor room with a view of the water and the city. The first day we just slept and waited for the dizzy feeling to pass. If you've been at sea for a while, when you come back to land, it feels like everything's moving. Your body takes time to get used to being still again. Sleep did wonders. Of course, being close to my love was the best. The next day, we relaxed by the pool and talked about our plans for after the trip. Diana was close to finishing her college degree and wanted to look for a job. She didn't need to, thanks to my income, but she liked being busy and wanted to help out financially before we had kids. Speaking of kids, we both wanted them soon. So once we were back, Diana planned to stop taking the pill and we'd see what happens. We felt ready for kids and wanted to be young enough to enjoy life after they grew up. We also dreamed about finishing our house, which would be ready in a few months. We imagined family barbecues and our kids' parties by the pool. This made Diana excited, and, well, it meant more fun in bed for me. The next few months were bliss. Married life and making love were our happy routine. We hung out a lot with Jack and Cindy Norman in June. We moved into our house even though the pool and garden weren't done yet. Work was busier than ever when I got back. I was away from home about a week each month, twice internationally. But Diana always came with me, not wanting to be apart. Being well off meant she could join me. She spent her days in my office while I worked. She worked on our house design, joined online support groups, and took what she learned from our counseling course to help others. She also got to know the office staff where I worked. We were always nice because being friends with the boss's wife is good. She liked to see big sights driving around with our helper. It felt like our wedding fun was still going. Back home, we planned our lives. We still went to the family meets, but not as much, maybe every few months. We were too busy. After half a year, Diana and I chose to stop her birth control. We bought tests and tried for a baby. A few weeks later, at a family meet, it was quiet, just us. It was our first time in a while. Diana knew I felt odd. We had told Mom and Dad about wanting a baby, and they didn't make it easy. Joan and Greg just watched. I was tired of everyone judging every choice I made. They had reasons. We were too young, should focus on work, and having a baby seemed wrong to them. Even Joan and Greg said it was a bad idea. After Greg made fun of me, saying I must be useless and Diana was only with me for money, I'd had it. I was done taking their nonsense. They never saw anything I did as good enough. It was time to leave. I was mad that no one defended me unless it was about money. "Dee, get your stuff. We're leaving." Everyone stared. "You leaving, boy?" my dad asked, trying to sound big. "I'm going home." "Why would you do that? Where are you? Family?" he asked me. I knew he never really wanted me here, but in his mind I had to come and go when he said so. For once, I let my anger and sadness show. "I don't know if you were my family." Everyone looked surprised. Families should care for each other, right? They can tease and fight, but they stand together. This family never backed me up when I needed something. Any of you. I pointed at my dad. "You always tell me why I can't do things. You put me down and say life isn't fair, so I should just quit and do what you want, which is never good for me. You never helped me. I never felt like you were a good dad. You give all your love to him, even though he messes up a lot." "I know." I started yelling, pointing at Greg, glaring at my dad. "You give your girl anything. She just has to look sad and you cave. My sister used to be great, but she's getting more selfish. She doesn't know real life because Dad does everything. And you," I pointed harder, now at Greg, "have been mean and hurtful since we were kids. I could have told the cops and got you in trouble for how you treated me, mental and physical harm. You're a bully, making fun of others to hide your own failings. The worst part, I protected you to everyone and hid the marks you left on me. Just now, you joked about me being less of a man, but you can't keep a woman for longer than a month. Do you know why they leave? Because you think you're the best for them, but that's far from true. In my mind, they're all off track because I've always seen my parents as perfect. Let me spell it out for you, big bro. You're not doing great, you know. Sure, you're strong, but you don't know how to use that to be better. Every word from you just shows how foolish you sound. And people just wince when you start talking. All you did was spit mean words at me over a small thing, trying to make me feel small. But just because you're not feeling great about yourself and I'm doing okay, doesn't mean you can say nasty stuff like that. Time for you to grow up. I looked at them, my family, and felt they don't care about me at all. My sister and mom don't seem to bother with what happens to me. And Joan only comes around when money's involved. No one spoke. They just watched as I let out all my anger. About money? Yeah, I have some. Why don't I share? Because you don't really care. I got through college with no help from you. I started a business with Norman. You called me dumb, but I made it. By myself. And you think you deserve a share of what I've worked for? You think just because I made some money I should just hand it over? You all love money more than me. In your minds, that's the only reason you keep me close, thinking you might get some of it. As for your little business, it's barely making it because you're living way beyond what you can afford, so you keep asking for my money. Even Diana tries to get me to share, but I see no reason why you should get any of it. I don't think you get what it means to love someone and then choose to help them out. And the worst part? I don't trust any of you. The only one who really cares for me here is my wife. I've been coming to this dumb get-together for years just because she asked me to. She says family is key since she knows what it's like to have none. But you know what? I'm done. I'm learning to be okay with that from now on. Screw this. Let's go. I grabbed my keys and wallet from the counter along with our phones and headed out the door. Diana followed quietly behind just as Dad tried to speak up. Now hear me out, son. I spun around, glaring at him. My mom, sitting next to him, shrank under my angry look. No, Dad, you listen. My name's Harry. Not boy, not mistake, nor any other small name you've thrown at me. It's Harry. And if you forgot how to say it, it's spelled Harry. But guess what? Call me what you want, because I'm done with you and all this. Goodbye. Without another word, I left, leaving them all stunned. I got in the car. Diana quietly got in beside me. I sped off, leaving tire marks and smoke behind as I zoomed away. I saw them in the rear view, standing there, watching. Soon, the calls started. First Dad's, which I ignored, then Mom's. Even Greg and Joan tried. When calls failed, they texted. But when texts also failed, they tried reaching Diana. She smartly ignored them all. After driving for almost an hour, Diana finally spoke. Harry, are you okay? No, Dee, I'm not. I've been bottling this up for as long as I can remember, and it just gets worse. After what Greg said today, I can't do it anymore. I want nothing to do with them. A tear rolled down my cheek. I didn't like my family. I wasn't sure if I still loved my family. But looking at Diana, I used to feel love for them. That was gone now. It hit me that for years, all I did was put up with them. And they likely just put up with me too. Why they acted so cold, I didn't get. Tears came as I drove home, sad over something lost that I couldn't even name. Diana touched my leg. It's okay, love, I get it. I'm here for you. Let's wait a bit and I'll step up for you. I don't want to talk to them alone. But in this case, I'll fight for us. Are you okay? She shook her head. No, Harry, I'm not okay. That stuff I shared with you, it's bad, and we need to talk soon. I have things to tell you too. Not good things, but know this. I love you a lot. I'm with you always. She was shaking as she spoke. I was mad, but she was scared. I felt the need to be strong for us. We can talk now. You're shaking. Let's find a place to stop. No, Harry, I need time to sort things out. Just trust me for a bit. I'm not sure, Dee. I don't like seeing you so scared, she cried a little. I know, but if we're doing this, let's do it right. I need to prepare first, okay? I didn't like it, but I agreed. Okay, Dee, I trust you. But I feel this is going to change everything more than we know. So don't take long, okay? Today showed me I'm in the dark about something big and it's scary. We spent the drive home saying it'll be okay, but I felt a storm coming in my mind. I knew Diana had big news for me that wouldn't be good. She needed time. This was going to be tough. We had some leftovers before bed. Tomorrow I'd work on some talks for work, but in the morning Diana and I would have breakfast with Jack and Cindy. As we went to bed and kissed, Dee caught me off guard. Baby, did you really say that thing to Greg about comparing sizes? I laughed, first time in hours. Yes. As brothers, we saw each other without clothes sometimes. To be honest, I don't know about when it's, ready. I made that up. But from what I remember, Greg is smaller than me when it's not. I was just so mad. Maybe said too much. Baby, even if you think you don't have his muscles based on what you said, I think you have two muscles way bigger than his, and in the places that matter too. She laughed again. Yes, the one down here, she said. In the one up here, she said, tapping my forehead. You're the smartest guy I know. You're rich, but you're not full of yourself. You have almost 1,000 workers all over, and even Norman couldn't do without you. I never saw you really mad at anyone until today, and today you just told them what you thought was true. Like I said in the car, I was so proud of you. I love you. Then my wife looked at me in that special way. Now, mister, do you think you can do what we talked about at your folks? Making a baby? I just did what she wanted without saying anything. Over the next hour, I felt her warmth twice. The weeks after were a bit tense. At work, we were making a new type of my famous plastic stuff. It was the same, but we could make more without using a lot more stuff, so we would get more money. Diana and I were trying hard to have a baby. She read a lot about the best ways and times to do it. Her best time to get pregnant was coming, so we were together every other day to try for a baby. I was happy to be close to my amazing wife so often. My family was still trying to fix things after I left in anger. They had a big fight after I left, but I don't know why. I left because I told them some hard truths about how they treat me. But then, they couldn't reach Diana or me. When my mom tried to talk to my friends Norman and Jacques, they didn't know about the fight. I told them a bit, and they felt sorry for me. One day Jacques said I should talk to my family again, sooner rather than later. He reminded me that some teachers and kids at school knew I had bruises from my dad or Greg. They even helped me get a scholarship to leave home for my safety. But you did, he said, and look at how much you've grown. I have a great wife and a top-notch business. Soon I'll be a dad too. But as tough as it was to hear, I need my family. But it has to be on my rules. I didn't want to believe it, but he was right. It had to be my way. Yet I didn't know my rules would be tossed aside the next night at home. Diana and I had a wild time in bed, and after she talked about my folks. Honey, I think I should visit your parents tomorrow. What? I nearly choked on my words. I was still wrestling with what Jack said, but it felt rough. She let out a breath. Cindy told me about your talk with Jack. Not everything, but Jack's worried about you. And there's something I need from them to clear things up. Also, if I just see your mom alone, maybe there'll be no yelling. I felt unsure, but I had to trust her. Okay. Call me when you get there and when you leave at 2. Next day afternoon, Diana drove off in her Jeep. She texted me when she got there and before she went in. I was anxious. After 7:30, I tried calling. By 8:30, I was panicked. I called my mom. The call dropped to voicemail. Mom, where's Diana? Soon after, a text came back. She's not here. I got in my car and drove off. I decided to check the way between our place and my folks, hoping to find her if something bad happened. I prayed she was okay. I called our buddies one after one. No news from any, but all said they'd keep an eye out and tell me if they heard anything. Cindy was worried and tried to calm me down. I told her I was heading to my parents' place, taking the route my wife might use, hoping to spot her. When I got there, Diana's car was in the drive. What the heck, Mom? I thought, because of her text saying Diana wasn't there. I felt a bad feeling in my gut as I left my car. It was late, close to 10 at night. My loud Camaro would have told everyone I was there. My mom came to the door in her robe looking scared as I walked up. Harry, please, Harry, don't go in, she begged. But I didn't listen and went inside. At first everything seemed okay. Then I heard sounds from my parents' bedroom. I ran to the room and my world fell apart. There was my wife with nothing on, face down on the bed, set up for my dad. My dad was with her, not seeing me come in. My brother was there too, smiling, watching like he had his turn before. Diana, my sister, also there, just sitting by with no clothes. I yelled, "What is this?" Exactly what it looks like, my dad said with a nasty smile. We're with your wife. She loves it. My brother laughed, clearly enjoying my shock. She's made for this, not for you. I started to feel like I was going to pass out, as if a storm was hitting me. This couldn't be real. My wife, who meant everything to me, caught in this nightmare with my own family. My heart was breaking right there, seeing my soulmate, my love, in such a situation with them. It was like my very soul was being torn apart. "Trust me," she told me, and like a fool, I did. I backed out of my parents' room and fell in the hall. My mom touched my shoulder. I wasn't thinking right. I pushed her away. She fell and looked at me, shocked. But I couldn't see right. I hurt so much, it felt like my heart was going to pop. I heard my sister laugh. "Guess we can call him Stupid Cup now." And then I cried. I stood up, lost. My arms were so heavy, my heart beat fast in my neck. Back in the room, my dad was with my wife, Diana. I stepped back, shaking. "No," I said. I heard them laugh. My mom was getting up from where I pushed her. She looked mad. That was the last I saw as I left. I couldn't deal with Diana and my family's betrayal. I ran to my car. Don't know how, but I started it and took off fast, crying. I didn't know if I'd live another hour, but I didn't care. My life felt over. Everything I lived for was gone. Betrayed by Diana, who was to have my kids. When the cops started chasing me, I was speeding way too fast. I didn't care. I kept driving fast. My tears dried, but now angry. I switched my fast car to sports mode and made the cops chase. It didn't matter that they knew my car. It didn't matter they could find my house from my plates. I just drove. Forget them. They weren't the ones betrayed by everyone they loved. Let them come with all they got. If I was going down, it'd be big. I'd make it a big mess. That thought caught me. What about my wife who cheated on me? What about my family who turned their backs on me? If I die, they'd get it all. They'd win. I was still making the cops chase me. I was losing them. But I knew they'd bring a helicopter next, and there'd be more cop cars ahead. Think quick, Jack. "Hey, Harry, how's it going? How did you find her?" I tried not to cry. No time to chat. "I'm in big trouble. I need you to help me out at the police station fast. Call Norman and make sure my lawyer knows to be there too. Jack, if you're my real friend, and I think you and Norman might be my only real friends now, please do this. I can't keep it together much longer." "Man, Harry, what's happening? Not now. I gotta go. Call Norman now and come get me quick." For the hard part, I drove to the nearest police station, a few kilometers from my house, and gave myself up. I beat the 4 cop cars chasing me by about 4 minutes and was already talking to the front desk officer when they rushed in. "Harry, what in the world is going on, buddy?" It was Tim Renwick. He worked at the local station and was a grade above me at school. We knew each other a bit over the years. We both liked Camaros, so he knew mine. He was a decent guy. Thought someone stole your car. He saw me and knew something was up. "Is Diana?" With Diana's name mentioned, I just broke down, crying on the floor. My nose was running and I couldn't stop crying. I was mad at my parents, but the rush in my body wore off. I guess they knew I wasn't going to cause trouble. My keys were with the front desk and I was at the station. I couldn't make sense of things for a bit. Then someone helped me up from the floor and I was moved. I felt the couch under me and sat down. They gave me tissues and water, but I just sat there, hurting. I wasn't sure how long I was out before I started to feel a bit more like myself, but I heard people talking. "We've looked all around and no one's seen anyone that looks like Diana," I heard Tim say. Harry had told me that Diana was headed to his folks' place last night, looking for some info they needed. Around 9:30, Harry called me up, worried about her. Then again, just before midnight, he rang, telling me to bring Norman and Paul over because he was in some deep trouble. "What kind of trouble?" Jack asked. "Don't know, Jack. Earlier, Harry led a bunch of cop cars, me included, on a wild chase. He's really shaken up," Tim replied. "But he didn't hurt anyone, and he ended up here." "So something's really off. Has he mentioned Diana?" Norman asked. Just then, I felt someone's arms around me. Cindy was there. "It's all right, Harry. We're all here. What's gone down? Where's Diana?" I broke down, tears streaming, muttering about the parents who felt betrayed, before losing it again. I must have dozed off. Waking suddenly, I found myself on a couch under a blanket, a pillow under my head. Nightmare visions of Diana in distress. My family acting strange haunted me. "You're out now. This'll fix everything," I heard my mom's voice say through my wife's lips. I nearly yelled but managed to calm down. I was in some sort of waiting area. Across from me were Norman and Tim. Jack and Cindy, though, were gone. I stirred, and June was right there with her calming voice, helping me sit up. "You're okay, Harry. You're still at the station. It's morning and things will get better. she reassured me, patting my back as I tried to steady myself, sitting beside me. She kept saying things would be fine. I always wondered what a mom's love felt like. Now, June felt more like a mom than mine ever did. Where's Jack and Cindy? I thought they were here just now. Tim, Norman, and June looked at each other. I don't know if you're ready for this. Harry Norman spoke. I took a deep breath. I could feel my heart beating fast and my chest getting tight. Diana? They nodded. I guess I need to know at some point. I braced myself. They're at the hospital with Diana. Okay. The hospital. Wait. Hospital? I might have been hurting. I might have felt like everything was broken. That everyone let me down, but I still cared for her. Was she hurt? Did something happen that hurt her? Norman spoke again. Harry, we've talked for hours, and I think you have some idea of what happened last night. I know if it were me, I'd feel like this was a huge betrayal. You feel like almost everyone let you down. We think that what you saw made your mind and body just shut down. We got 3 words out of you, and then we started figuring things out. So Tim, here got a car to your folks' place to find out more. Tim continued. Harry, there was trouble, and it's not done yet. 2 cops knocked on your folks' door around 2 a.m. The lights were on, so they knew people were up. It took about 15 minutes of knocking before your mom came to the door. They didn't have the right to go in without a legal reason, but what you said was enough for them to ask questions. It took another 20 minutes of talking to your mom before your dad came out and tried to make them leave. He said all was fine, that it was just family at home and there was no fuss other than you showing up earlier and fighting with your wife. He told the cops he kicked you out for being rude to the family and that your wife stayed with them because you got angry too much. He stopped to look at me. You okay so far? He asked. I clenched my jaw. That's not how it went, but I felt more was coming. I'll stay strong for now. Tim nodded. Norman and June were also all ears. They hadn't heard the story yet because I was out cold. They just knew Diana was in the hospital and she was getting care, so the cops had no reason to stick around. They were about to leave, but as your mom shut the door, your brother showed up from the main bedroom naked and yelling, Dad, move it. She's waking up. We gotta drug her again before we can have our way. What? Norman? June and me yelled at Tim almost at the same moment. We jumped up. Harry, Diana was drugged and hurt. My world started spinning again. My heart squeezed tight. I began to breathe too fast. This time, my pain was for Diana. I was there. She was tied down and didn't move, but I didn't really see. Angie, what did I do? I left her there. I felt like I was going to pass out again. I was in the room and I thought I started to sink down, but June kept me up. Harry, she whispered. Harry, don't go down. Diana needs you now. She was right. I let her down. Worse, I felt she let me down. I had to know more. My mind was set. They could tell. Tim, can you keep going? I need to know. He nodded. It's okay, Harry. This is tough for us all. He took a deep breath. It looked like it took a moment for Greg and your folks to get it before they tried to act. First, your dad tried to slam the door shut, but the head cop pushed the door open and burst into your parents' bedroom where Greg came from. Next, my brother ran to the back of the house. The cop would have chased him, but then he saw Diana. His buddy was calling for more help and was getting his gun ready. Things were getting really bad. They found Diana tied to the bed, crying and yelling for me. My sister was there too, with no clothes, just lying there, happy because Diana couldn't do anything. Soon, 4 more cops came and all of them went inside. More help was coming. They caught my sister on the floor next to the bed and they got my mom at the front door, but Greg and my dad got away. They ran to the back and fought one of the cops looking for them. Then they did the same to another cop. Both cops are now in the hospital and my dad and brother are hiding. As for Diana, they untied her and put a blanket on her until an ambulance came. Harry, she kind of knows you were there last night. She's really messed up. They gave her something to calm down, but she keeps asking for you, even in her sleep. She keeps saying she needs to protect you. I need to go to her then. I need to see her. I'm told, hold on, Harry, you're not in trouble, but we need to hear your side of things. And we have some paperwork to do. Diana's in the hospital now. When can he see his wife? June asked. Soon, Harry. Can we take your statement? The sooner we do this, the better. So for the next hour, I told him, and Norman and June, who stayed, about everything that happened, how Diana went to see my parents after I got mad at them. I told them about the big talk Diana needed to have with me about my family. I went on, telling them how scared I was. After getting a text that she was missing, I rushed to my folks' place. What I saw there was shocking. My family, barely wearing anything, and my dad was with Diana, tied up in their bedroom. I thought Diana was okay with what was happening, so I ran out, hurt and confused, and started driving away. I wanted to run from it all. But when the cops started chasing me, I knew I had to face what happened. I called Jack to help me find a good lawyer. I was so out of it, only remembering bits and pieces until I finally passed out and woke up here a bit ago. Tim was writing things down and asking about names and what was said. He seemed to be thinking hard. Then I told him about my dad. He never calls me by my name, always the mistake. So when they made those comments, it felt like they were just making fun of me more. Tim seemed worried when I told him about school days when I'd show up bruised, hinting I was being hit at home. And then there's Diana. When they checked her, they found she wasn't just tied up. She had marks on her back like she'd been hit. That set me off. My family hurt my wife, the person I'd do anything for, all because of what they did to me. I had to stay strong. I told Tim about how my dad used to hit me whenever he wanted, how nobody in my family really cared about me unless they had to, and how any good thing I did was laughed at. After about 10 more minutes, Tim said he got everything and left to make his report. About 20 minutes later, he came back. "Okay, guys," he started, "we've got a few things to sort out here. The big trouble about going too fast and running from the cops got dropped because I agreed to take a driving class to get better at it. I had a chat with the head of the police, and he was okay with it if I helped out at some police events with money. This was the main legal mess fixed, so I was free to go. I'll get a car ready to take you to the hospital. Driving yourself doesn't seem good right now. If Norman and June want to come too, they can," he said. But then, there was more news. "Tim, your mom and sister are being kept here." He paused. "Your mom wants to see you." But I was too worried about Diana. "I need to see Diana," I said. Tim agreed, and he drove me in his police car, while Norman and June took mine home to get clothes for Diana and me. They said they'd meet us at the hospital later. Diana was in a special room after the ER, under great care and hooked up to a lot of gadgets, resting uneasy. As soon as I got to her side, I kissed her forehead and held her hand tightly. I don't know if she sensed me there, but she seemed calmer right away. Jack and Cindy came in right after, and we hugged tight, still holding on to Diana, and cried some more. The next days were full of ups and downs. Friends like Norman, June, Jack, Cindy, and Tim visited. Work pals who knew us both spread the word, so the whole town seemed to support us. We got so many cards and flowers from lots of folks, most I didn't even know. That first night, I stayed up next to Diana. Around 2 a.m., I felt a touch on my head and saw her looking at me, eyes wide open. My hand was with her since the start. "I'm so sorry," were the first words I said. "Please love me back." She looked so sad but full of hope. "I love you so much," I said. She, weak but trying, pulled me close and we shared a soft kiss. Then I got onto the bed, careful of all the machines she was hooked up to. I held my wife tight, my beautiful wife who had seen so much pain. We cried together until sleep took us. The next day, the hospital workers brought in a big bed for two so I could be right there with her. She needed a drip and some meds to deal with her pain. Later, Tim and an officer, Karen, came with Norman, June, Jack, Cindy, and Paul. Paul was our lawyer. It was just Diana, Paul, and me when she shared her story. It was as bad as I feared. She had gone to see my folks to try and fix things between us. She also needed some of my papers, like my birth certificate. She was there about 20 minutes, chatting with my mom when Joan gave them tea. It tasted odd, she said, but she didn't think much of it until she woke up with no clothes, tied down to a bed. "Look who's up," Greg said with a laugh, mocking her. "You think you're so good, but now you're ours. And making a big error, he's going to end up caring for kids that aren't his own." Greg couldn't stop the loud laughs. "My dad came into the room with John and my mom. That girl, she didn't join our games the past years after all we did for her. She thinks we've forgotten her and that she's safe from us. But no. She's about to find out how we do things here. If you saw my sister Joan." "Go get everything, Martha. Make sure we're alone," Greg said. He greeted Boy's wife just like she was one of us. Then Greg's smile turned mean. He drooled a bit and leaned over her with his fist raised high and hit her hard on the back. Diana screamed, "Welcome to the family, bad word." Then Joan came back in with some small bottles and needles. She was all smiles again. My dad took charge. "Now let's get ready. It's time for our main guest." Everyone started to take off their clothes. "Just so you know," my dad told Diana, "I know you wouldn't join us on your own, so we're going to help you a bit. My dear Joan has a strong sleep drug. They use it for serious doctor stuff, like brain work when you need to be awake but can't feel. With this mix, you'll kind of know what's happening and feel it all, but you can't move a bit." Diana tried to fight the ropes. Greg hit her again. Diana let out a sound, then stayed quiet. "That's better. What'll happen is you'll be part of this family thing. Greg and I will be with you. We'll do this every 2 weeks till you're carrying a baby and you'll make it look like it's his," he laughed. Diana tried to yell. Greg raised his hand and Diana pulled back. Her back hurt too much. "Now, Diana, see, I can say your name. See, I'm being fair here. I just stopped Greg from hitting you again. If you work with us, we'll take care of you. You're going to let the kid think he's the dad to our kids for a bit, and you'll act nice. If you talk, I'll spill everything in our past." Then Joan stuck a needle into Diana's arm. "Just a sec," she told her dad. Joan got in front of Diana without any clothes. Diana felt sick seeing her husband's younger sister like this. "All right, Diana, you keep quiet or you'll lose everything. He'll throw you out and you'll have nowhere to go. Tonight, we take turns with you. Tomorrow you say you stayed here because it was late. He didn't know I tried calling you and my mom texted back saying you weren't here." He whispered more threats as she felt the drugs work. Diana remembered crying, wanting all this to end. She thought they hurt her multiple times. She thought she heard Harry and tried to shout but couldn't. She then felt a blanket on her. Slowly, she started to wake, dreaming and waking with Harry there. She was crying a lot. Diana was hurt, forced, drugged and harmed by her own family. I wasn't just upset. Hearing her story made me more than mad. I was set on ruining them. My dad, my mom, my sis, and yes, my mom who didn't care much. They'd have to dive deep into the worst hole of hell to get away from the bad storm coming for them. How could anyone do this again to me, I thought. What did I do to make them treat me so bad? After hearing Diana's side, Tim and Karen said bye and would come check on us later. When everyone else was about to come in, I had an idea. I asked for more time with Diana and me alone. They looked a bit confused but felt it was something big. They shut the door, leaving us alone. They knew a bit of what went down, but I bet our pals didn't know it all as they shut the door. Diana looked worried, and I was too. My wife had been hurt before we met, and now again by my family. I wasn't sure what kind of trouble was between us. Body, love, mind. But I knew she didn't betray me. It might be hard, but I needed to be there for her now. She was still in shock. I knew we'd need a really good helper for us both. But right then, I felt Diana was hurting more. I went back to the bed, held her close, and just held her for a bit. No words. And Diana cried again, holding my arm tight. I knew we'd have a lot of this for some time. I was sad. We had a great thing, but now it was messed up. Darn them. Why did they have to be so mean to me, one of their own kin? That made me mad again. But thinking of kin, the idea from before, the one Diana just told me about, came back. As Diana calmed down again, I knew I had to ask the hard stuff. I won't say, "Are you okay?" I know you're not. Neither am I. But you gotta know I'm still head over heels for you, even after all this mess, so I can't just sit back. We have to face this, and I want to do it with you. Okay. She turned to me. Her glasses were off, and her lovely brown eyes were red around the edges. Her face was all red and patchy, nose running. She was clearly upset. But when she looked at me, I think she figured I wasn't going anywhere. She was looking for a bit of hope, something solid to hold on to. Man, did I ever want to be that for her? But there was stuff I needed to get straight. Just a bit ago, as you were sharing with us, you dropped a line I'd never heard before. Can I ask about it? If it's too much, just say so and I'll drop it. Okay. She nodded. You said this thing? He's not my son. Diana, what's that about? She looked worried for a sec, then down at her hands, then back at me. She found it hard to get the words out, kept peeking at me from behind her hands. But she told me, my dear, this was something I needed you to know. It's why I was after those papers from your mom. One of those papers was an old DNA test they ran on you. Roger isn't your real dad. Suddenly, a lot of stuff made way more sense. So everyone knew this whole time and just kept it from me. Why? From what I get, they found out when you were about 3. As you got bigger, it became obvious. You didn't look like your dad or brother. Your hair, for one, was all wrong. I don't have all the pieces, but that's the gist of it. That's where all the bad blood towards you comes from. To them, you're like a stranger. They had to deal with you being around. And I guess Roger did the bare minimum he had to for you, nothing more. You might guess that the affair is why your mom never took your side. To her, you were a mistake, the child that Roger thought should never have been born. Greg and Joan are his kids, but not you. You knew. She just nodded when you asked. Yes. She found out a bit after you two began dating. It was by chance, as you were seen more like a friend of the family then. Your family didn't know about you two dating, and she didn't want to tell them. You were becoming very important to her. She left her glasses at their house once. She kind of walked in on Roger. Sorry, she can't call him your dad now. He was upset with your mom over something you did. It was about your chemistry work. He said that since you were not his son, he shouldn't have to deal with you and that you owed him for taking care of you. They knew she heard that last part. So Roger left the room and Martha told her a few things. Martha took a moment, then said there's more. Martha showed her proof you were not Roger's son and hinted at a letter from your real dad to you, but Roger would never let you see it. These are the things she wanted to get for you. That's why she went to their house that afternoon. She hoped Martha would give her the papers without Roger there. They belonged to you. She wanted to tell you so badly, but it wasn't her story to share. She knew Roger would never tell you. But she wanted your mom to be brave, for once, to tell you the truth. Life seemed like a big mess. It always was. She just didn't see it before. She needed to move on, and she thought of her next question. This might upset her already hurt wife. Why didn't you tell me? Diana looked at her hands and was silent for a long time. Her nod was tiny, hard to see. This is a tough one to tell, Harry. Do you remember just before we first got together, I freaked out, saying I was broken? I thought I wasn't the pure woman you wanted. I was not a virgin like I believed you deserved. I touched her arm gently. Of course, that didn't bother me. I just wanted you with me, and you were all in with me. Tears fell from her eyes to the hospital bed. But she kept going. What I never told you was about my uncle. He was alive when we met. I found out about him late in high school. The folks who protect kids thought it'd be good for me to live with family, for stability. But Uncle Clinton wasn't made for family. He took the support money but didn't want a kid. He drank a lot and used heavy drugs. One night he came into my room. She stopped, crying, gripping my hand tight. He forced himself on me. He stole my first time and left me feeling tainted. She wept, and I just held her close. I had no idea the loving, warm, bold woman I fell for had such a rough start. About 3 months later, he died from a bad drug mix. I hadn't been there long, but it was a dark time. By then I was 18 and he left me nothing. So I was on my own with a little cash and a few clothes. I got a part-time office job and started college. It wasn't much, but it helped pay some bills until I got my study money from the government. I found a cheap place with a couple of girls, and that's where I met Cindy. So I found a job, guess where? A construction place. Yep, you're right the first try. IMG Constructions, the place my old man once ran. I'd been there about half a year. Roger, he liked making folks from work come to his parties. Thought it made him look cool or something. I just nodded along. We were always told to act right when his bunch of pals showed up at these parties. After 6, suddenly it felt like a heavy burden I didn't even know I had was gone. Diana, hear me out before you say more. She looked at me, worry all over her face. She'd just shared something big, something that could push me away, and she was nearly breaking down. Her grip on my arm got tighter. I gently patted her arm. You are the most wonderful, amazing lady I've ever met. I loved you so much, even before knowing all this. You were everything to me, and I didn't think I could love you more. When I saw you in that room at my folks' place, it felt like everything inside me was ripped out, like I was just empty. They say when I got to the police, I was almost out of it. My world had crumbled. My love for you was everything, and suddenly I felt lost. She was about to cry again. The tears started. She looked down. You say loved. Does what happened to me change your love? Nothing can change my love for you. She looked up. No. If anything, I love you more now. Diana, my love, you've been hurt, tricked. You fought for me, never did a thing to shame me. You went to that house for something you thought you had to have? Yes, you didn't tell me all, but now in daylight I get why you did it. And even in this mess, you're still here for me, for us both. I couldn't love you more than I do now, and I can't say no one will pay for the hurt they caused. Wait, take a breath. I know it's going to be tough. We'll face a lot of hard times, but with you by my side, I'll walk through it all. Then, I leaned close, held her face, and kissed her long and deep, pouring my heart into it. We stayed like that till there was a knock. Jack opened the door. Hey, all good? No, it's not good, but we have us and we'll make it, I said. Okay, let everybody in if Diana's fine with it. I think it's time you all knew some things. Everyone gathered, and with Diana's okay, I shared what happened in the last week and the family secrets kept from me as I explained how my old family went after Diana. Jack and Norman were real mad. When I said I wasn't Roger's kid, that my mom had a fling or something, they were shocked. Then I told them about using Diana to get her pregnant and shake money from me. They felt sorry for me. I laughed. Well, it went wrong for them. I got the best of it. With that, I got a great woman. We're sticking together, and now all that money will go into making them pay. We talked all afternoon. After a bit, Diana pulled back as some truths about her past came out. Tim knocked and stepped in. Everyone else knew it was time to go and left, saying they'd check on us tomorrow. Tim shared the news. He had some clues about Roger and Greg, but they were still free. My mom and sister were in jail and had visitors from their work. Tim thought he might not be their lawyer for long because of what the charges were on my sister and mom, and what they would be for the men when caught. The company and family money hadn't been stopped yet, but that seemed like it would happen soon. We talked a bit more, and then he left, promising to keep us in the loop. I messaged my friend saying I wanted to talk about helping MG out. Despite everything, a lot of folks needed that company for their jobs. If the business could work, maybe I could buy it and keep them working. But I was not sure. Lawyers would have to check it out. That night, we slept together in the big hospital bed, holding each other tight. Diana had to stay in the hospital for 2 more days before they could let her go. They were checking her health fully, and she had to talk to a counselor before leaving. Luckily, Norman and June brought us clothes and things from home, so we were comfortable. In the morning, we showered together in the small hospital shower. We both felt like being close, but just held each other, feeling a bit safe together. Later, Diana's doctor, Dr. Hill, came in. She told us Diana was doing well and could leave tomorrow, but she then said there was something else, something private to talk about. Is it okay if your husband steps out? She asked. Diana held my arm tight. Dr. Hill was clear, even with my husband here. I checked your blood, she began, looking at Marge. Found some signs not usual for what you went through. Your body's been stressed, but these signs, they're more about being a mom. She paused, checking if we got her. Are you telling me I'm having a baby? I asked. Dr. Hill nodded. Yes, you're pregnant. This kind of news after what happened is why she often talks to us one by one. We'll need to do some tests later to find out who the dad is. Boom, that hit hard. It could be me or it could be my ex's dad or brother. How to feel? Me and Diana were lost. Dr. Hill kept going. I know it's tough. Were you two close before all this? I looked at Diana, who nodded. Dr. Hill, we wanted a baby. Been close a lot before all this. Then you might be the dad, she said. But still, the chance it could be his dad or brother was there. I was mad. She got it. I'm sorry, but hiding this won't help. Can we have a minute? I asked. Sure, I've got others to see. I'll bring what you need for later. Take your time, she said, then to Diana. He's one of the good ones, whatever happens. He's been with us through some tough stuff that would make most run away. But I see a kind of strong hope in his eyes I've not seen before. I wish I could feel that too. It seemed like there was a big story there, maybe about a lost love or something. But Diana knew. She spoke the truth. I was right there with her. She chose to stand with me in a really messed up time, and it cost her a lot. Dr. Hill left us, closing the door. For a bit, we just stayed quiet, looking around but not at each other. We needed to talk. How do you feel? To be honest, I'm lost. I'm pregnant and didn't know. I should be happy. Excited since we've wanted this since our honeymoon. But it's hard to feel happy, with everything that's gone on. She paused. What if the baby isn't yours? I'm not sure. My love, in some ways I feel the same. I'm so mad at them. I feel so weak and guilty for not keeping you safe. I keep thinking I let you down, and I'm really scared the baby isn't mine. I wish I could go back and stop you from going that day. I get it. I don't remember much, but I was scared. The bits I do remember were bad. I think I got sick a few times. I wanted you to come and save me, and I wish I could have called out to you when you came. Now this. She looked down at her belly, still not showing, but she was slim, so it wouldn't be long. What do we do? Do we keep it? We never really talked about being pro-choice or pro-life, and we're not much for religion. I'm not sure. I'm confused. What if the baby is yours and we decide not to keep it? I had to agree. And what if the baby isn't mine? Does this baby not deserve to be loved by us? Two people who wanted a baby just because of something bad someone else did? Diana agreed. If we keep the baby and it's Greg's or Roger's, she shook. How'd you feel? I didn't know what to say. I'm lost right now. Mad is my first thought. But we want a baby. And you're with child. How long till we could try for another? Or if we could have another if we didn't keep this one? It's hard because it's all new. We're hurt. I do hope I can move past it to hold our baby. I'm not sure I could turn away the chance to love our baby, even with how it happened. Diana smiled sadly. You said our baby. I smiled back. I think this is our choice. We'll still check who the dad is later. But this, I said, touching her belly, will be our child. We talked about what it means. We were a bit unsure, but we wanted to try. Plus, I wasn't wanted when I was born. Even if it's not mine, I want to give the love I never had. We both agreed. We knew it won't be simple. But when Dr. Hill came back, we told her, and she seemed glad. The next day, Diana and I went home. At home, Diana always stayed close, and I liked it. I was working from home and planning to go back to the lab soon. I wondered how Diana would be without me. Maybe Cindy June could come help her. We also saw a therapist every week. We had a lot to work through alone and together. We tried to be understanding, mad more at our families than each other. When it was time for me to go back to work, I didn't need to worry. The friends were ready to help. Diana got that I couldn't skip work forever. My first day back was hard. Everyone at work asked about Diana. They didn't know all that happened, but they knew something bad went down with my family, and that my ex-mom and sister were in jail while the cops looked for my ex-dad and brother. When I got back home, Diana was right there with me. She tried to hide it, but all knew. So in the weeks that followed, we found our way. Some days, Diana would join me at work when I wasn't in the lab. Other times, Cindy and June would hang out with her. Around 6 weeks after everything happened, Diana and I got back together in a close way. The lovemaking wasn't mind-blowing. At first, we were both a bit off, but we both felt good after and slept well. I worried she might not want me after what happened with Roger and Greg, but really, she just needed me to make her feel mine again. She also thought I might see her differently after all that went down. At the start, I was a bit distant, but we moved past it. Over the weeks, we found our rhythm again. The only hiccup was her baby bump at what seemed like 18 weeks. We went for a checkup. Everything looked fine, and we learned we were having a girl. I was so happy and put any doubts about being the dad out of my mind. Diana's bump was showing, and she seemed glad I was happy. We made the room next to ours pretty in pinks and purples, with cute stickers for the walls for our daughter. I also decided it was time to deal with some family stuff, so I reached out to Tim to plan a visit to my mom and sister. Months ago, after that night, I hadn't seen them. Martha and Joan were in trouble, caught for doing a lot of bad things. Their court date was soon, about a month away. They were kept in jail for now. Roger and Greg were still free. First, news said they were far across the border, but the latest word put them near, which made us worry more. My place and where I worked had guards all day and night. Diana and I had alarms with us that tell where we are, and the security team could reach us in 5 miles here. If we had to go out not for work, we told our guards, waiting for Roger and Greg to be caught. They had hurt me for years, and now Diana too, so we were very careful. One Saturday afternoon, Diana, Tim, and I went to the local jail. Tim said he'd wait outside with Diana while I met my mom, then my sister inside. They both agreed to see me. The room was just like in movies, with green walls, a metal table, and chairs that didn't move. No one-way glass, but a camera was there. The guard who brought me in showed me the camera, saying it was for video only to keep us safe. Soon, my mom came in wearing brown clothes and white shoes with cuffs. They asked if I wanted her tied to the seat. I said no. She looked so different, like she had aged a lot in just a few months. Her hair was messy, her eyes deep set, and she had some small scars on her lips. She sat down, facing me, and the guard left us alone. She just stared at me. I wasn't sure who would go first, but she did. "How's Diana?" she asked. That threw me off. I was ready for questions about me, maybe an apology. But this? "She's fine. She's outside. And she's going to have a baby." I watched her face go hard, then soften. "Pregnant," I cut in. "You lost the right to ask about any of it. What happened to Diana? To me, it's on you. But since you asked, we don't know yet. We hope it's mine, but it might be Roger's or Greg's after that night." She looked down, beaten. "Harry, She couldn't finish. I jumped in. "I'm not sure I should call you ma'am or Martha. You've done so much wrong, but it's been worse than Martha in my head lately. I want to say ma'am, but can't. You've not earned it." She nodded. "Martha works. And before you ask, yes, we're keeping the baby. Mine or not, I'll love it fully. Not like your husband treated me. This kid will know love." "So Diana told you then?" "Yep, it slipped out." "How, Martha? Everyone knew I wasn't Roger's but me. I thought I was just like your side of the family." She turned away, crying. I had no pity. I had tissues, but she wasn't getting one. She faced me again, deciding something. She turned to the wall, spilling the beans about my past when I was in my late teens. I had this guy, George. He was lean and kept to himself. He was good for a laugh and kissed soft. We were each other's firsts. But after high school, George and his folks moved. We tried the long-distance thing, but knew it was a no-go, so we called it quits. Back then, not many women went to college. So I got a job at a construction place doing the books. I was okay at it, but then one of the workers, Roger, started chasing me. George was chill, but Roger was all in, pushing hard. He didn't back down till I said yes. 6 months in, we slept together, and bam, I was expecting Greg. Roger's dad said we had to tie the knot, so we got hitched, and Greg came along. Not too long after, George swung back into town. Your dad, was busy kicking off his business, hardly around. George found me, and it was like old times. He made me laugh, brought presents, and made me feel wanted. One thing led to another. With Roger away and some wine in the mix, George and I ended up together again. Long story short, I was pregnant once more. I went all in with Roger when he got back. Guilty about the fling, but I kept it hush that George had been back until way later. When you arrived, Roger was over the moon. 2 boys. Despite being always busy with his business, he was trying to make a good life for us. He wasn't really home much, so I did my best to raise you both. Deep down, I knew you weren't Roger's kid, and a DNA test proved it. I didn't tell George, and still, Roger and I had John. I felt so guilty. About a month after John was born, you started to look different, and Roger noticed. He pushed me for weeks until I admitted I had been with someone else, and you were the result. That night, Roger hit me hard. The only thing that might have saved me was John needing me because he was crying. I had to sit outside your room rocking John to keep Roger from hurting you. Then Roger vanished for a month, but he still sent money for us. When he came back, he wanted to control everything. He ignored you completely. You were 3 when you tried to hug him, but he slapped you instead. I picked you up, crying, and took you to your room. When I returned, he warned me to keep you away from him if I didn't want you hurt. But he made me promise not to tell anyone. He didn't want his image ruined. So I did my best to keep you safe from him. By the time you were 8, I think Roger had told Greg about you. Greg was mean like Roger. That's when Greg started being mean to you too. That sounds about right. Roger told me I had to learn to fight for myself. If I tried to help, both you and I would end up with nothing, just like those who don't win. So I let Greg hurt you. If for some reason he couldn't, Roger would bring me over and Greg would hit me instead. Later, Roger would force himself on me. Over the years, I hoped you would leave, but you didn't. You stayed and faced it. I was proud, but also sad you didn't fight back or run. That's because I had no friends. Roger, Greg, and Joan made sure of it. I was foolish to stand up for Greg and hid my hurt thinking we should stick together as a family. I've learned that's not true for our family, and that includes my mom. My words might hurt, but she agreed. "You're right," she sighed. "I can't defend what I did. I know you hate and are angry at me, but you should know the truth." Now it was her turn to speak. She said, "When you got the scholarship, I was so happy. Finally, you could leave and make your own life. When you started dating Diana, I was glad. She shouted loud that you were hers and stood up to your dad. I mean, Roger, when he tried to scare her." I smiled a bit then. Not many have faced Roger before. Only when you made your invention and filed for your patent did someone beat him. I jumped in. "You mean filed for your patent?" When Roger realized what that meant, he was mad. He and both Greg and John hurt me a lot. I couldn't leave the house for almost a week, but still had to do all the housework. They all started calling me mean names after that. Feeling sorry for me? She laughed, but no real joy was in it. "No, Harry, I don't. Should I get sympathy from you again? This is only about what went down, that's all. I guess that's when Roger thought about taking your money. I knew Diana worked for Roger, and he had a plan for both of you. And then you got nice cars, fancy clothes, you looked better, and there was fire in your eyes. But most of all, you didn't share your cash with us. Roger thought, since he let you stay and he thought you saw him as your dad, he had rights. After you were this kid that he had to take care of, that day when you had your big fight and left, Roger got mad and made plans. He lost it and wanted to get Greg, Joan, and me to grab Diana and make her have his kids. He thought, if a kid came that was his and not yours, you would look after it. Then he could say your money was for his kid, not yours. But Mom, sorry, Martha, that's not how it works. I know, darling, but that's what he thought. When Diana came that day for the DNA results and the letter from your real dad that I hid, Joan called Roger and Greg and told them to come home while she put something in Diana's tea. And when she was out, she hit me, telling me to remember my place. And we waited for the guys. I'll never forgive myself for not saving Diana from that place. When Roger and Greg got there, then they tied her down and she tried to fight. They hurt and attacked her, I added. Mom nodded. For the first time, I saw true tears in her eyes, and they weren't for herself. Roger told all of us to take off our clothes, and while each boy spent time with Diana when she was out because of the drugs, I had to stay in another room. I put on a robe and really tried to make you leave because I knew what you'd find. But I was scared they'd hurt you, or even hurt Diana more. So when you called, I texted, hoping you'd think she was never here. But at the same time, I didn't. The three of them wanted you to catch them with Diana like that. I'm so sorry for all of it. Neither Diana nor you should have gone through that. It's my fault because I wasn't faithful. She never looked my way, but I could tell the dark suit she wore got even darker with her tears. I guess I have to accept that, she went on. The rest you probably know. I guess seeing you and Diana still together, you've figured out a lot. That makes sense. Next thing, you mentioned a DNA report and a letter from my real dad. Can I see them? She smiled. This time it felt real for the first time in a long while. Yes, Harry, you can have them. I was about to get them for Diana when everything happened, but they're hidden under a fake part in the bottom of my winter clothes drawer. If you can get into the house and have my lawyer let you in, you can get them yourself. I doubt I'll be leaving here anytime soon. I don't think so either. This next part is tough for me to ask. Did I ever do something to make you not love me? Before I could pull my hands back from the table, she reached out with her handcuffed hands and put them on mine. No, Harry, you never did wrong. It was all me, not you. I thought by keeping you away, by taking the bad hits and not helping you, I'd save you from the worst they could do. But I got it wrong. I thought I was doing my best to keep you safe. But now, I see I was looking at it in just one way. I love you, sweetie. And I know these words might not mean much to you. They might sound empty, but I truly do love you. I'm so proud of you. You're way better than your dad. I might not get to say this again, but I really do love you. And I'll always love you. I'm sorry for everything. You are my son, and I've messed it all up. But if today helped you sort out your thoughts and it has given you a way to move on, then that's all I can hope for. Our talk just stopped right there. Mom pulled her hands back and we just looked at each other for a while. Then she went to the door and a guard opened it as she walked through it. She looked back at me. One last thing, sweetie. They might have called you a mistake. You're not. You were made from love, between George and me. You are my biggest achievement. And if we never talk again, know that I will always be proud of the person you have become." And then she left. I sat there for a bit. It seems like my mom had it tough, maybe even tougher than me, getting hit at home like I did. My family was really a mess. It didn't take long before there was a knock at the door. "You ready for the next one, Mr. Other?" the guard asked. "Yep, bring her in." If Mom looked bad, Joan looked worse, in the same type of clothes Mom wore. Joan sat down and just glared at me. Her hair was short and wild. She had a new scar and looked like she hadn't slept in days. When she wasn't glaring, she looked around like something was going to get her. For someone who had everything easy, this must have been very hard for her. After talking with Mom, I kinda got where she was coming from. But Joan, my so-called sister, was a whole puzzle to me. It wasn't me who started the talk. "You know, a lot of bad folks in here know you," Joan threw at me like it was just a fact. And that made her worry. Why? Turns out a bunch of their kin work for you or your folks that send stuff to you. You're kind of a big deal in town, young, rich, and you help a lot by giving jobs. You're all about helping out, even charities that help bad folks start over. None of this was news to me, Joan. I grew up tough and I want to give back. I want to help out. If it means giving time, cash, or effort, I'm in. There it is. The goody two-shoes our family took in, not even related by blood. Too good for us, huh? And here I am, locked up for nearly a month. Once they know I'm your sis, all they talk about is how great you are for helping everyone. But you've done squat for me. I tilted my head to her, puzzled by her last words. Help you, Joan? After what you did to Diana and me, why on earth would I want to help you? If my sharp words stung her, she didn't show it. Because I'm your sister. You were supposed to protect me, use your cash and power to get me out of here. And why would I do that again? I shot back. I'm your sister. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Some of the bad folks here found out what we did to Diana, and when they find me at night, they make me do stuff I wouldn't have imagined. It's strange, considering she made my wife and my mom do probably similar stuff, but I guess it feels different when you're the one in trouble. Joan, let's get this straight for a sec. Never call my wife that ugly word again. You, your dad, and your brother hurt her bad without her saying yes. She's the one who got hurt, not you. And you want my help? Go away. After what you did to Diana and to me, you dare ask for help? I laughed so hard when she did. Let me tell you why. A long time ago when your dad was busy working and your brother too full of himself to teach you how to ride a bike, you came to me. Remember that bike? It was a little girl's bike with streamers and a basket and a loud bell you loved to ring. Nobody else would help, but I did. I spent weeks teaching you how to ride. Those were some of the best times. I felt like I was doing something good. You were so happy to have me help you. I finally felt like a big brother and you seemed like a little sister who really cared about me. We used to ride around the block, just us having fun. But then I think your dad and brother told you their secrets about me that I only just found out. You changed overnight. You didn't want to ride with me anymore. After a few weeks of asking, you finally told me off, said, "Go away, mistake. I'm not riding with a loser like you." That's when you stopped being my sister to me. I don't think you noticed, but I stopped talking to you after that. Every talk was like you weren't there. Even your mean big brother talked to me directly. But you took my care for you and threw it away. It ended with those words you never took back. You can't change that. You're here because of what you did, not my problem. No, Joan, I won't help you. In fact, I'll make sure they keep you here as long as they can. You say there are bad folks here. Look at yourself. And those help groups I give money to? I'll tell them if they help you. I'm done giving them anything. I sat through this meet just about done. I asked to see you today to find out if you felt sorry for what you did to my wife, or if you even cared about me. But from the start, you didn't ask about Diana. You didn't ask about me. You didn't try to say sorry. All you cared about was what you wanted. No, Joan. To me, you're gone. And you'll be in this place a long time because of what you did. And you won't get a dime from me after I leave. If it's up to me, this is the last time we see each other. I took a small thing from my pocket and put it on the table. It was a tiny bike, like the one I showed her how to ride. But I leave you this to remember. To remember when we were kids learning to ride together. I'll miss the sister I lost that day. I'll always remember those times on our bikes. But you'll remember me for a long time. Goodbye, Joan. I hope you have a tough time here. I knocked and a guard let me out. My last look at Joan, her head down, a little bike on the table. Sitting out here, Diana and Tim were talking low. They got up as I came close. Diana hugged me, her belly big with our baby. "How did it go?" Tim asked. "Well, in some ways, just like I thought, but in others, very different. I think my mom really feels sorry for what happened. She didn't try to blame anyone or ask for help. She seems to want to take all the blame. From what she said, it sounds like she's had it worse with Roger, Greg, and Joan, more than Diana and me together." Diana let out a gasp. It hit me when she asked about Diana first. I looked down at my wife, who's going to have a baby, and smiled. Joan was a different story. She just wanted me to get her out. Didn't say sorry or anything. It feels like Roger has gotten to her again. Me, I'm set on making sure Joan faces what she did. I looked around the jail. To me, she can stay here. We talked some more, and I felt like Tim had something he wanted to show us. "Guys, there's a report from last night that one of the trucks from Roger's work was stolen. The security video showed two people that looked a lot like Roger and Greg breaking in. We're keeping an eye out, and our community is on the watch. But please, be careful the next few days." We told him we'd keep an eye out, and both Diana and I made sure we had our emergency buttons with us. I called our security team to tell them to look around our house and office more, just to be safe. It was a tiring afternoon. Talking to my mom and Joan wore me out, and with a baby on the way, Diana gets tired fast, too. We were glad to head home, looking forward to a simple dinner and chilling in front of the TV with Diana. We went to my Camaro, and as I helped Diana in, I thought about getting a new car, something better for kids. Much as I love my car, it's not great for a family. Thinking of another Jeep or a Range Rover was cool, but as I turned the car on, I thought, nah, a four-door V8 AMG would be more fun. We hadn't even left the jail parking lot when Diana began asking questions. "Harry, are you really over your mom and sis?" I took a moment. With Joan, not yet. I'll make sure she gets what's coming to her. My mom? I'm unsure. She seemed honest with me for the first time. If it's all true, she's had a harder time than us. What she said fits with what you told me in the hospital. I clicked my fingers. She revealed where to find the DNA report in a letter from my real dad. That made me sad. She also said my real dad was her true love. How she felt about Roger, I'm not sure. She had to stay because of us kids. 3, well, 2.5. I'm not fair when it comes to Roger, so hard to say. Part of me wants to forgive her. I feel she cares, but was trapped. We stopped at a traffic light. Not much traffic at this time, just chatting about the day. Feeling wiped, but glad to be moving on. Then, out of nowhere, a truck sped towards us instead of crossing the light like normal. It swerved, and in the fading light, its headlights aimed right at my side of the car. Driving it was a man with a wild grin. Beside him, yelling happily, was Roger. They say in life there are moments when things seem to slow down. Your life flashes before your eyes. From my end, things did slow, but my life didn't flash before me. And that was okay. I had seconds to act or I'd be gone. Given how Greg drove that truck, the side of the Camaro was their target. In seconds, they would hit my driver's door hard. It would crush, maybe kill me. Diana was next to me, at risk too. I hit the gas hard. The Camaro's strong engine roared to life. We sped up fast, but it wasn't fast enough. The truck, already moving fast, hit us at the backside near the wheel. "Hold on!" I yelled to Diana. Metal screamed and plastic bent as we were hit. We spun out of control. The Camaro, now sideways, spun round and round before stopping. We looked at each other. "Are you okay? Hurt?" I asked her. She shook her head. "I think I'm fine. You?" "Yeah, I'm okay." I took out my panic button, showed it to Diana, and pressed it. She did the same. Our buttons lit up, calling for help. It was Roger and Greg. "They hit us," I said. I tried to see where the truck was. It was right in front of us after our spin. Lucky we didn't flip over the road edge. The truck had hit a pole after bouncing off my car. Looking over, I saw Roger and Greg shaken but getting out. I wasn't sure what to do. Stay in the car, run, or face them. The car seemed safe for now. All windows were okay except for a big crack on my side. But running wasn't easy. I had my pregnant wife with me and I was no good in a fight. Maybe 2 against 1. Probably couldn't handle even 1. So maybe talking was the way to go. Get out and buy some time. If I could make them chat, maybe help would come. I thought this was our best shot. "Dee, trust me," I said. I opened my door and stepped out, being careful of the crash mess. Bits of my Camaro and their truck were everywhere. I walked to Dee's side, acting like I hadn't seen Roger and Greg yet. I played it cool to win us time. I had to make them think I hadn't noticed them. I opened Dee's door and helped her stand. Then I faced our attackers and stopped cold. They stood there easy, untouched by the crash. But they looked rough with messy beards and old clothes. They seemed leaner, like they hadn't worked in a while. The crazy look in their eyes scared me most. And they each had a scary, cheap shotgun. I moved Dee and me behind the car door, using it as a shield. They were about 30 meters away, but guns are guns. Well, 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 one said. Look who it is and his wife. Funny seeing you here. Greg nodded at my wrecked car. Seems like you've had a rough time. Lucky we showed up, huh? His smile almost looked real, but it had a dark shade. Greg. Roger barked, then glared at me. They held their guns easy for now. Kid, you owe me. You and your woman. You shouldn't have talked to the cops. You were meant to listen to me. Not run, not blab, not go to the police. After everything I did for you, like you were my own. You owe me. I owe you. Nothing, I said back. Crap. I figured talking back was bad. Nothing. What about all the years I gave you clothes, the food, the letting you be? I moved closer to them. I brushed off the threat of their guns for a moment, my anger climbing. I had talked back, ready to face it deep down. I knew help was on its way. What about all the abuse, the hits, the scars, the mind games, the leaving me alone? What about the terrible job you did as a dad, not even seeing me as your son? He laughed. You not getting it? You're not, son. Never were. I let you be out of kindness. But I didn't have to do more. My wife was a cheat and was with another man behind my back. I was working hard for us. Then she hid it from me until it was too late. You're a mistake, not wanted. Like dog waste on my shoe, I couldn't get off or lose the stink. He swung the gun around but didn't aim it. When he looked at me, he saw I wasn't upset or shocked by what he said. His eyes got sharp. Ah, looks like someone spilled the beans not long ago, huh? Was it your mom or the wife standing with you now? Like she's so good? Did your wife tell you she was trouble before you met her? That she was with her uncle and has been trouble since you got together? Diana tried to speak up. It was my turn to laugh. Just wow, you're one of the worst people I've ever met. Yep, my lovely wife and my poor mom told me so. The no good guy here isn't my dad. And yeah, I talked with Diana about her tough times. I know it all. And I love her for being strong through all that bad stuff. But I was the one who found out you weren't my real dad. You never were. Real dads care for their kids, their own or not. They're there for them, help them grow, cheer when they do well, and are there when they don't. But you were never that for me. And standing here, I gotta say that. I'm not sad about it. But you know what's really bad, Roger? Your pride's hurting so bad you can't see how you messed up your other kids, too. I got the full story, not the half-truths and lies you tell. Think you're smart, huh? But that doesn't change that you still think I owe you something. He lifted the shotgun, and I stepped out from behind the door, telling Diana to stay back and putting up my hands, ready to take a shot for her. I was trying to save her. So what's this? Your bad idea of making me pay? If it was all about money, trying to kill me is a dumb move. He laughed. You don't understand, do you, kid? That baby my wife's carrying is either mine or my real son's. So if you were gone, my kid would get your money. That way, I win. You missed the point long ago. I made sure you or your family wouldn't get a dime of my money way before this mess. Didn't you get why you couldn't touch my money? It's because you've been awful to me my whole life. After what you did to Diana, I swore your family wouldn't get anything from me if something happened to me. I had already started to make plans so that my money would be used to lock you up in a dark place where moss would grow on your head. And that tiny thing you're so proud of won't ever touch anyone again. I think I was making a point, but it looked like Roger was losing his mind as he threw his head back and laughed again. He pointed at Diana, who stood behind the broken Camaro. I hit her. We all did. And she wasn't good at it, but she took it anyway. And while you act tough, I know you, boy. Deep down, you're hurting. We made you a dad. Your mom helped us drug your sister, and Greg and I got her pregnant as he talked. He walked closer, and Diana went white and hid behind. Roger stopped a few feet away from me. Face it, boy. You'll die outdone by a man much better than you. I threw my head back and it was my turn to laugh a lot. I needed more time and I think I needed to do something. It was risky, but it could save Diana. I laughed, taking a deep breath and then making the laugh loud and long. Roger and Greg froze. Diana looked shocked as if I had broken Roger. "You're really dumb, you know. That child isn't yours or Greg's. It's mine. You hurt my beautiful wife, but she was already expecting. We had been talking about having a kid for over 2 months, and she stopped taking her pills a month before that. We were together twice a day, and according to the doctors, I'm very fertile. Diana and I were together twice that day before you drugged my wife, and besides," I looked at them, "we all know both of you aren't well endowed. You might have thought you were making a move, but I doubt either of you could get close enough to a woman to actually do anything. Not like the good 7.5 inches that's only for my wife." I had pushed them too far, made fun of their pride, and said I was better than them in many ways. They looked mad and also a bit red in the face. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw lights coming, but they wouldn't get here in time. I had to do something dumb. I put up my hand as they aimed their guns at me. "Hold on, stop," I said, with a small laugh to seem less serious and a bit crazy. They lowered their guns a bit, but I had to poke them one more time. "Roger, did your mom have to get help to have Greg and Joan? Since my real dad gave your mom all she needed. My story was, he was a great man. He was kind and made her very happy many times. You, I heard, are not good at it, making her feel nothing." I smiled, knowing one more little push would make Roger act and I'd have to be quick. I said he was so bad, she needed lots of help, which was funny because he wasn't much to talk about. A kid should never know his mom's private stories, but talking with her today, it was clear you couldn't make a woman happy, even if she was almost there and needed just a little more. Now, if Mom gets free, she might leave you and look for my real dad, George, to marry. I made them want to come at me, which was what I wanted, to keep them not looking at Diana. Roger lifted the gun, aiming at me. Greg also ready to act. "George Daniels is nothing," he said, "but at least when I'm done with you, I'll know who's next." His finger pulled the trigger and I jumped. He thought I'd jump away from Diana, but I jumped straight at him, into the mess of car bits around us. I got hit by pellets on my right shoulder and my back. It hurt a lot, but I had to keep going. Diana and my lives were on the line. I made a dash to get out of the weapon's range. I crashed into some car parts from the smash-up, including the back wheel cover. Without thinking much, I grabbed the cover and threw it towards Greg. Greg fired again, but missed. I didn't hit him well, but I made him drop his gun. He needed time to pick it up. I quickly grabbed another piece of wreck. It was from my busted Camaro's tailpipe. You might not know, but the end of it is sharp, made of shiny, hard metal. Now I was really close to Roger. I took the tailpipe and got up, holding it like a weapon. As I stood, Roger loaded his gun and aimed at me. He wanted to end it with one last shot. "Goodbye, boy," he yelled. But as he fired, I swung the tailpipe up. The shot missed, going off by my left ear. Shotguns are really loud, but I had no time to think. Death was close. I pushed Roger with the tailpipe, making him fall back. I kept going and aimed the sharp edge down. Roger had wrecked my life and hurt those I cared about. I was going to stop him for good by driving the sharp end into him. I drove down all my hurt and years of bad stuff, all the betrayal poured into that one push. He saw it, his eyes wide. His big gun was too far, knocked out of his reach. Even if he could grab it, it wouldn't shoot. I was too mad. I pushed hard. Roger knew it was coming to an end. It felt like that crash we had before, and I knew it was about to be over. But then, out of nowhere, I felt a hard hit. Greg had left his gun and hit me hard, making me fall. I saw lights coming. Help, maybe, but it was not sure if they'd make it in time. Now it was 2 against 1 again, and it looked bad for me. But Diana would be safe, at least. My shoulder and back hurt a lot. Greg got up from hitting me. He looked mad, ready to fight. "Come on, I'll beat you down and take your girl," he said. I didn't see how I could win. Greg was big, and I was hurt bad. He waited for me to get up, thinking he'd just knock me down again. But then, luck changed. My hand found Roger's gun on the ground. I felt hope, got up, put a new shell in, and pointed it at Greg. He ran at me, mad, with a knife. "Bye, Greg," I said, and pulled the trigger. He never saw it coming. A rain of pellets hit him square in the chest, and he fell. I turned to point the gun at Roger and saw he had fainted. but my makeshift spear hadn't hit his chest. Instead, it stuck in his right arm near the shoulder. Blood was starting to pool around him. His body was in shock. Well, too bad for him. Cars were zooming our way, almost here. I went over to Diana and found her lying on her side, trying to breathe. Blood was also spreading by her side. Her eyes weren't sharp, her breaths short and quick, her back marked with wounds from shotgun pellets. It seemed she got hit during the fight, but I couldn't tell how serious it was. There were about 12 spots bleeding on her upper back. It looked like the car door helped some, keeping her lower half, including the baby, safe. But she was hurt. Despite my efforts, I couldn't do much. Every bit of strength was leaving me with each move. My shoulder was badly wounded, and like Diana, my back was bleeding from many holes. I fell down beside her, all my energy gone. I think she knew it was me, and not the other two. I put her head in my lap for a bit. Her eyes became clear, and we looked into each other's eyes. No need for words. And for a third time in less than 15 minutes, time stretched out as we looked at each other. There was only love between us. She was my everything. I was hers, through and through. But I was helpless to do anything for her. She lifted a bloody hand to my face, touching it softly and with love. Tears fell from her eyes. "Harry, I love you." And then she closed her eyes. My daughter was born just a few hours after Diana and I got shot. The shock of the event caused my daughter to come early. I missed the birth because I was out cold on an operation table, getting bits of a fired shot taken out of my shoulder and back. It took more than half a day to fix me up, and it was 2 full days before I woke up. Right before I passed out, our security team had just reached us. The ambulance was quick to pick us up, and Diana and I were rushed off. I heard later that Diana was in surgery for about 20 hours. She had our baby girl in just 3 hours, which was fast given everything. Right after, she had to have surgery on her back to get the shot bits out and fix the damage from when we were attacked. I missed all that. Greg got another shot at Diana while I was dealing with Roger. She got hit trying to take cover. Then Greg tried to come at me, thinking I'd just taken down his dad. Diana nearly didn't make it through surgery 3 times. Even though the shots didn't hit anything vital, being weak from having the baby made everything more risky. I woke up first, in the same room we started in, to find 5 people there with us, excluding the doctors. Jack and Cindy were sleeping, and by Diana, June was also asleep. Norman was sat between us reading. But the biggest surprise was seeing my mom, in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed to the bed, napping with her head on my bed but still holding my hand tight. I didn't know what to think, but my first need was simple. I tried to ask for water, but it barely came out. Still, it got everyone's attention, and they quickly gathered around. Then, the doctor came over. Hill came in the room. She got called for sure. "Harry, hey, look at this light, okay?" She checked me over and was glad to see I was waking up. I got some water and drank a bit. "Diana," I said, kind of rough. Dr. Hill gave me a small, tight smile. "She's right there in her bed. Still out, but she'll be okay after having the baby in surgery." "Having a baby?" This time the smile was big and everyone showed it. "Harry, you're a dad now, to a very small but lovely little girl. Congrats. She's in the care for early babies, and I think you can see her in a day or 2. After she left, my friends and family came close to my bed. I saw worry for me, joy that Diana and I made it, and some were mad this happened to us. Then after a few, "You look like a truck hit you" jokes. And yes, they were bad. But we laughed. My mom asked, "What went down, honey?" "A bit after you left jail, I got a buzz that you were in a crash. I told them how Roger and Greg hit us with their truck after we left, waiting for the right time to hit us. I shared about the fight, how I shot Greg when he ran at me and how Roger missed his shot at me, and then I got him. I said how I found Diana by the car and then fell down. I glanced at Diana in her hospital bed and saw her eyes open and looking at me with tears. Jack quickly went and got Dr. Hill, who came and looked over Diana. No one got in Dr. Hill's way, but Diana kept looking at me. When they told her we had a baby girl, she cried. Her voice was soft, but she remembered having the baby, just not the birth, or that our baby made it. "So, can anyone tell me what happened after Diana and I fainted?" Norman spoke up. "I think I know. I got there about 10 minutes after the help team. I knew that both Diana and you had hit your panic buttons. A team was already on its way to you." When I made it, they were putting both Diana and you on stretchers, and the place was a total mess. Looks like the cops just wrapped up looking into it this morning. I guess Tim will want the cops to talk to both of you soon to check all the details. The spot where it happened is still blocked off. After you both were okay in the ambulances, they took you here to get fixed up. I stayed back with the team, knowing you were being taken care of. June, Jack, and Cindy came too and stayed by you. You probably know your Camaro is wrecked. The scene was crazy with a lot of blood, bits of the car, and pellets everywhere. Once the news spread about the crash, the fight, and people running around with guns, the news folks jumped all over it. And when they heard it was Harry Other, the rich young guy from our town, they lost their minds. I got so many calls at the office. Even movie folks want the rights. Despite being hurt, I found it funny. Diana did too. Who would want our life story? It's been rough, not really fun. Then Norman, what about Roger and Greg? Norman paused, then looked at Martha. My mom gave a nod. Greg didn't make it. He was gone right there. The ambulance tried, but his chest was too messed up. The cops think it looks like self-defense. Our law team is on it. Turns out a traffic jam caught it all on camera. It's not clear, but it matches a lot of your story. I bet the cops will want to hear it from you. I nodded. I had hated Greg so much. I wanted him to pay for all the hurt he caused me over the years. Yet I couldn't believe it was me who ended his life. My mom, chained to my hospital bed, made me feel better about it. And yes, there was a cop outside keeping an eye on her. "Harry, don't feel bad," she said. "It was always going to be you or him. Yes, I am sad because Greg was my son, but he got what he deserved. And the son we all treated so badly is still here." Tears rolled down her face as she spoke. I held her hand. "Mom, why are you here?" She tried to stop crying. "It was Norman and Tim's idea. I'm still waiting for my sentencing next month. But when they told me you and Diana were in surgery, they wanted me to see you before I faced the judge. I regret what we did to you and Diana. When they brought you in, I couldn't hold back my tears." She showed me her handcuffed hands. "I am so sorry for everything. I'm sorry, Diana. I wasn't the mom I should have been. I should have stopped Roger, Greg, Joan. I should have left with you. I am sorry. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I will always love you." Now that we were both awake, she wanted to leave. I stopped her. "Mom, I forgive you. Our family is a mess, but I forgive you." She cried. I knew it was more than she thought it would be. I was shocked that I could forgive, but thinking back on what some folks had told me in the past months, my mom was hurt by Roger and his kids too. She was hit, scared, mistreated in bad ways if she didn't do as told and keep me in check. They said they'd hurt me bad. So, I thought the least I could do was to let go some of that hurt. What about Roger? Was he smiling? Norman's face? Yeah, he's still around. But he lost his right arm and a lot of blood. That happened after you stuck him with a piece of the car. He's been through 2 surgeries and needs 2 more because the arm's got an infection. Plus, he's watched by cops all day and won't be out of jail ever again. My mom spoke up again. "I've talked to my lawyer once. He's okay. I'm going to leave him because he cheated, was mean in his mind, pushed love away and more. I'm not sure what will work, but I should have left him long ago. I know. I have to pay my dues, but I'm done with him. I never really loved him, but stayed because of the kids and couldn't find a way out. So there won't be much when we split, but I'll feel a bit free." Next, June reached for a big yellow envelope and gave it to me. Inside was a folded sheet and another envelope. "Is this?" June nodded at my mom. "Yesterday, when the cops brought her here while you were out cold, Martha had me get these for you." I looked at Mom and she gave me a look. All eyes were on me as I opened the DNA test results. I wasn't sure what I was seeing. I studied chemistry, not biology, so I put it aside. I'll have someone explain it later. Then the letter. I opened it and started reading. "Harry, if you're reading this, you've been told Roger isn't your real dad. My name's George Daniels. I gotta tell you, I'm your real dad. Your mom and me were together in high school, then life pulled us apart. But we got close again for a bit. And that's when you came to be. Martha was married with another kid, so we stopped seeing each other. I've been watching you grow up from afar, hoping that one day we can meet and you can get to know my family. We like books and working hard. We love a good challenge. And I hope you got that from me. Harry, you're my first kid. I don't know if you'll have brothers or sisters by the time you read this, but if you do, I hope we can all get together. You're always in my heart. Much love. Your dad, George Daniels. Reading this, I swung between angry and sad for a while, but this time I felt happy tears. I had a real dad. I showed this letter to Mom, and she cried too. Then I called Jack and Norman over after Diana mentioned George's name a while back. I had a hunch, but Jack confirmed it. Harry George is my big brother. There's a big age gap, but that's definitely his writing. That makes me your uncle, I said. And Norman, you're my second cousin. You both have felt like family since you helped me out in high school. You've been there for me ever since. Now I can't sneak around anymore, I joked. We all laughed. Mom gave Jack a weird look. George is your big brother? Jack nodded, and we spent a few minutes talking about George. Not long after, Tim walked in with another cop, and it was time for Mom to go back to jail. She looked at Diana, then at me, waiting to be cuffed again. I'm so happy for both of you, and I swear I'll try my hardest to forgive. At the end, Diana did something no one guessed. She asked Martha for a hug before she went. After she left, people started to leave too. With the big worry now gone, for the first time in a long time, I felt like things were going to be all right. It was about 7 in the evening when we got another surprise. This time, 3 nurses and Dr. Hill came in, pushing something. They brought in a small special bed for babies that helps keep them warm. Our daughter was inside. One nurse helped me get up and brought my IV stand close to the bed. Another did the same for Diana. Then they gave us a bit of space. It was tough to hug, but touching made us feel way better. I could tell Diana felt it too. Charlotte, she said, watching our baby sleep. That was the second name we liked most. Beth was our first pick. But seeing her there, tiny, with monitors and a tube to help her breathe, Charlotte just felt right. And so, she was Charlotte to us. Holding hands, we knew she was ours. Not just as Mom and Dad, but truly ours, even though we hadn't touched her yet. I was sure she wasn't Roger's or Greg's. She was mine. The next month was tough. Diana and I had a lot to get better from. Lots of things to sort out and a very small kid to watch over. We called her Charlie for short. She'd need to stay in that special bed until her lungs got strong enough for her to breathe without help. That might take 3 more months. She might have to stay in the hospital for 2 more months after that, but the day they took her off the machine and we got to hold her, we were so happy. To say thanks for all they did, Norman and I gave a big gift to the ward for premature babies. We got our office DNA results back, and they showed what Diana and I already felt in our hearts. I was indeed Charlie's real dad. We were still getting better in the hospital. Jack came over with George to meet us. Diana and I were struck by how much we looked alike, and when we looked more, we saw the family look between Jack and me. George was smart, calm, and told us he kept up with my work from afar but didn't want to mix in. He had lost his wife to sickness 3 years back. He had a son and a daughter and promised to bring them by once we were out. His kids already knew about me, so there would be no shocks there. Meeting them made me nervous, though, because the last 2 siblings I met tried to ruin me. But meeting them went well. We clicked quickly. Megan, my half-sister, ended up working with Norman and me on our public image within a year. George Jr., a college researcher, liked to share a drink and talk about any idea up for discussion. Right before we left the hospital, we had a court day. Diana and me, along with Dr. Hill, Norman, Jack, George, June, Cindy, and our guards, went. We stayed at the back of the room. We might have had to talk in court as we were getting better. My arm was in a wrap and my back was itchy but getting there. Diana's back hurt too but was healing. Each of the 3 on trial came in with their own cheap lawyers. The judge hit his gavel to start things off. I want to say thanks to everyone for being here today. This court is closed off to the public because the stuff we're talking about is very touchy and wild in how it all played out. I saw each of the 3 people in trouble had their own lawyer, and they all wanted their cases heard one by one. The old lawyer for the state stood up and agreed with the judge. This was a big deal trial, not just a regular argument, but the state against each one of them. Joan was first. She looked a bit better than the last time I saw her, wearing a simple suit like you'd find in a secondhand store, face bare. She looked my way a few times, first in shock to see me there, then mad because she knew I wasn't going to help her out. But as the judge read out the final call, her look was hard to figure out. The lawyers talked about the charges, what they meant, and how they argued for and against them. Diana was supposed to talk too, but our lawyer had already given the judge a statement which he took with all the proof given. "What does the accused say?" the judge asked. Joan's lawyer spoke up. "My client says she's not guilty." The judge wrote that down. Then it was my mom's turn, and again, all was laid out. This time the state talked about her past affair, the one I came from. Her lawyer talked about the bad stuff she went through from Roger, Greg, and Joan. But when my mom told her side, she didn't try to cover up her part in the bad things done to my wife. She kept looking our way but stayed quiet. "What's the call?" asked the judge. Mom and her lawyer stood for me and said, "Guilty." That's what we hear. Next was my dad from before. He looked okay, but his arm was wrapped up and he limped a bit. He wore prison clothes because no suit was given. He looked mad at us, then sat. His lawyer seemed to just do the needed, but not much more. His lawyer turned red when they read what Dad did. He knew about fights and trying to hurt bad, but cutting his own kid was new for him. A big shock was that Mom wanted the divorce done here too. Since they won't be together again and might stay in jail, Mom thought it was best to do it now. After hearing everything against Mom and then everything against Roger, the judge agreed. There wasn't much to help them. They read some stuff, but it didn't make Dad look any better. The divorce part made Roger seem even worse. With everything out there, "What's the call?" asked the judge. Roger and his lawyer stood for him. "Not guilty," they said. "Noted." "We'll break and come back at 3 for the decision and what comes next," said the judge, then left. George was outside for us. Norman and George took us for a bite. The place wasn't much to look at, but they said the food and shakes were top. Once, George and his nephew Norman joined us all for lunch. It was a big group with our hospital and security team. We nearly filled the place. The food was good, especially the toasted sandwiches. After eating, we went back to the courtroom at 3. The judge made us quiet and started talking. This case shows us the bad guys and the ones hurt by them, but there are also some good guys who don't get much notice. We've listened to many stories today about the 3 people here. I've thought hard about what's fair and what each should face. One story tells of a family broken because a wife was unfaithful, causing pain for a long time. In another story, instead of leaving, a family chose to hurt and scare others. This court can't stand how some acted scaring kids and even causing someone's death. Each person here asked to be judged alone. I've done that. Now for the state against John. Stand up, please. John, you are found guilty of all. You'll be in jail for at least 12 years with no chance of getting out early before 8 years. Since you're not sorry, I'll make a note for the parole board to read before they think about letting you out early. Now, for Martha. Stand up, please. Martha, you are found guilty of all but not being mean to Mrs. and Mr. Other in your mind. The court said Mrs. Martha Other has to go to jail for 5 years, but can ask to leave early after 1 year. The court also found Mr. Roger Other guilty and said he must stay in jail for life without a chance to leave early. The court talked about the bad things he did to his family and called it very wrong. The judge talked about how brave Mr. Harry Other and Mrs. Diana Other were. They stayed strong and close when things got hard. The judge was happy to see that. After the judge finished, the officers took the people away. A couple of months later, we brought our baby Charlotte home. We had a big party. Friends, work people, and lots of family came. Charlotte was a very cute baby, and everyone said so. We visited my mom in jail once a month. She was in a place that was not too strict. She was very happy to see her granddaughter. Every time we went to see her, she cried a lot. She gave our girl the biggest hugs and many kisses. It was like she wanted to make up for the time she missed. Mom also started to work with some groups in prison to help herself and others who had hard times like her. When she had been free for a year and got out, we threw a big party to welcome her back. Growing up, Mom was not very warm, but being free from Roger, she changed. She was nice and warm, caring for everyone. She would hug and kiss me every chance she got. She lived with Diana and me for 2 years after that, which was great. Charlotte was just a bit older than 1, and we found out Diana was going to have another baby. Having Grandma around was so helpful. After getting out, Mom visited Joan every few months. But I heard Joan was still just thinking about herself, and even Mom was fed up with her not owning up to things. She never saw Roger again, and I heard he had a tough time in prison. I became close to George. We both loved learning. and though I never called him Dad, we were close. He spent a lot of time with us, not just for me, I guess. One night, when Diana was close to having our second kid, I caught George leaving my mom's room. After the trial, Jack and Cindy decided to get married. Then, after Diana had our son, Harry Jr., Jack and Cindy had their wedding. He was 3 months old. I was Jack's best man, and Diana was Cindy's maid of honor. Charlotte was the cutest flower girl. Soon after the wedding, we found out Cindy was also expecting, so they would have their first kid not long after being married. Work was going well, and life felt regular again. I finally got those new parts done to make our work better. It took me over a year to finish that project, and it felt great to do it. We also grew our business more. Lots of companies wanted what we were making. Diana and I kept helping each other grow, and sure, we had our share of fights like any couple. We'd argue over small stuff that seems silly now, and then have big rows over a messy kitchen or forgetting to buy milk. But we never stopped talking to each other, even when we were mad. We picked up a funny tip. If you were mad and arguing, get naked before you keep going. We found that a lot of the anger would disappear if you were standing there bare with the one you love. And after some lovemaking, you could talk about what really mattered calmly. Thanks to all we went through at the start, we faced a few challenges with secrets and sharing. It wasn't really about trust, but certain things could quickly upset us both. Yet one thing that came from it all was that Diana didn't like being more than 5 minutes away from me, so we kept getting help for years after. The deal with the TV studios was real, and they turned our story into a pretty good drama. The actor who played Batman did a good job playing me. He was buffer, but he could look nerdy too. They did even better with Diana. Black Widow? Nah. We use the money from the show every year to help with domestic violence. We learned it's not just men who can be hurtful, it goes all ways. And we do our best to help those in pain. One Saturday morning, years later, as we were planning our daughter Charlotte's 10th birthday, Mom walked in looking a bit sad. She had George with her, and I noticed they were getting close. Maybe my mom and dad could start fresh, but who knows? Weird stuff happens. "What's up, Mom?" "You look sad. Like someone's gone," I said. Mom nodded. "It was Roger, wasn't it?" I asked. Mom just nodded again. "You know what, Mom? Let's remember the good and forget the bad. He tried to break us, but we got stronger," I said. "That's the thing, Harry. I can't think of one good moment with Roger. That's what makes me sad. I wasted so much time, but life isn't always kind," she said, repeating something Roger used to say. That night, I was in bed waiting for my lovely wife. And when she came in, wow, she looked amazing. She was not wearing clothes. Her hips had changed a bit after 2 kids, but I still loved looking at her. She laughed. "Hey there, sailor," she teased, noticing how excited I was. "You always surprise me, Dee. How's that?" I asked. "Even after everything, the good and the bad, your eyes are only for me. Anyone else would have left," she said. "And why do you stay?" I asked. "Is it my love, my money?" She laughed. "No. My jokes?" Smile, but no. "So it must be my love and how good I am in bed," I joked. She thought for a bit. "That's correct, but no. Tell me why," I said. "Because, Harry, when things got hard, you always came to me, so I'll always come to you," she said. "I'm the luckiest." I smiled, but then felt sad. Life keeps throwing stuff at us, good and bad. "Are you thinking this because of Roger?" she asked. "Maybe. From being a kid to meeting you, starting our business, and all about Charlie's birth, Roger was always there. I hated him, but a part of me always wanted his love, something to show he cared. And now he's gone." "Don't think like that, love. He was nothing like you. You beat him at every game he played. You didn't just win, you soared. And that's not all. Unlike him, you got the girl too. When your wife tells you, you nod. You never fight back, especially when she spends the next hour proving with her body how much the girl liked you."